Michaels, Jack Johnson hanging out with us. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you a lot of stuff to get into and talk about today. Obviously, the NFL draft wraps up. Kansas City Chiefs wrapping up with their 7 selections. Obviously talked a lot about Josh Simmons on Friday with that selection on Thursday night. And then they go and grab Omar Norman Lott in the second round. Ashton Gelati, having a little gelati with your football, huh? Ashton Gelati and Noah Williams in the third round. They go and grab Jalen Royals in the fourth round. Jeffrey Bassa in the fifth round, and then Brashard Smith, running back out of SMU, in the seventh round. So they come away with a tackle, defensive tackle, edge, cornerback, wide receiver, linebacker, and running back in their 7 picks. It is interesting they did not duplicate any picks, because typically we will see with the Chiefs, not every single year, but a number of times you'll see them throw some numbers at a specific position. The only thing that they had a duplicate of is just defensive line, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But they did attack the defense in certain spots. Offense, they attacked the positions that we felt were positions of need. And to me, it shows, as we look at the entirety of the 7 picks, it shows the position to me where the Chiefs were in before the draft started, and that was what they addressed in the offseason, allowed them to go a number of different ways and to bring in certain guys at positions that maybe the value matched the need, and they could draft for not only this year, but you can look down the road a couple of years. You can look for 2026. Last year when they drafted Jaden Hicks, they don't have to go and sign Justin Reed. They don't have to say, well, Shamari Connor, now you're playing safety.
Yeah.
Because now, I mean, he is going to, but Jaden Hicks is now going to slide into Justin Reed's spot. So they're not paying $11 million a year for a safety in Justin Reed. I wouldn't mind that, because I think he's a fantastic player, and it feels like he's much older than he actually is because he's been in the league a number of years. But they decided it wasn't worth that money. But that's because they had Jaden Hicks. If they don't draft Jaden Hicks last year, I wonder what they do in the offseason if they re-sign Justin Reed. Or do they go cheaper at safety spot and throw numbers with Shamari Connor and Bush and Edwards and throw in another safety that might have signed for half the money Justin Reed did and said the best 2 will find their spot on this team? Christian Fulton you bring in, so therefore Trent McDuffie can slide on the inside and Shamari Connor can move back to safety. That may have been the role and the path they took. But they didn't have to, because Jaden Hicks last year. This is, to me, feels to a larger degree like that in a number of spots. Linebacker, Drew Tranquill is in the final year of his deal. Leo Chanel is coming up on the last couple of years. You need somebody that can play off Nick Bolton and cover, can go sideline to sideline. You don't have to have somebody be the Mike, even though he was the green dot for Oregon. Wide receiver, we talked about it, man, that I don't know how many games Rashee Rice is going to miss this year, whether that be because of the ACL. I don't expect it to miss any games because of the ACL. I expect it to be the issue with the legal process playing out and how many games he may be suspended for. 2, 4, 6 games he might be out. So we don't know what the status is of Rashee Rice, and he's in the final 2 years of his deal. Hollywood Brown is a guy that has battled injury his entire career, and we know that last year. Xavier Worthy on this team, but Justin Watson is gone. Juju, role player. Sky may be no more on this team moving forward. Nico Remigio may have had a bad day over the weekend with them bringing in multiple guys that are part of the return game.
And Brashard Smith.
Smith and Royals is part of the return game. Noel Williams, part of the return game. You brought in 3 guys, I should say, that return kicks and punts in college that all specifically mentioned returning and being a part of the return game. So it may have been a bad day for Nico Remigio on Saturday. But we'll see, because he's already established himself with the Chiefs. He's the incumbent, right?
Yeah.
These guys, if they want to be a part of the return game, are going to have to beat out him, who had some big plays in the playoffs. So it ain't like he was, well, all we have is Remigio left and he sucked. And he was fumbling and he kept getting tackled. And no, he had the big one against Houston. He had some big plays in the postseason. So they did address, as we heard Brett Veach say, the return game is going to be part of it. And we've heard it from running back And so I thought, hey, running back return game, you're looking for more of a speed guy, looking for more of a dynamic home run hitter. Well, that's what they got in Brashard Smith. Now, maybe that's not exactly what they were targeting. They were targeting good football players, and on their board, running back 7th round, you're picking 228th, and there's the running back that's the best for you that you think will fit. I came away from this draft pleased with what they got, the overall haul, and how it improves the team this year. Most of the time, the large portion of the draft is going to be dependent on who the first-round pick is and what that guy does. If Josh Simmons fails, you're going to need a lot out of the rest of the guys to make it a good draft overall. If Josh Simmons hits and he's your left tackle of the future and the other guys are like special teamer role players, not great. But if out of the draft you found your left tackle for the next 8 or 9 years, I feel like you might have signed up for that going into it because, good God, it was such a revolving door with that left tackle spot. As we mentioned, Patrick Mahomes has started 5 Super Bowls in his career with 5 different left tackles. And it ain't 5 Super Bowls over 20 years. It's 5 Super Bowls in 6 years with 5 different starting left tackles. And the next Super Bowl he goes to will be 6 for 6. 6 Super Bowls, 6 different starting left tackles. Perfect world. Josh Simmons is a stud. Norman Lott is a guy that can give you pass rush ability. Norman Lott can be Turk Wharton. If Norman Lott is Turk Wharton, which is what I think they replaced Turk Wharton with Norman Lott, if Ashton Gelati can be Mike Dana plus,
sure,
opposite George Karlaftis, and when Mike Dana moves on with his contract, Charles Omenihu on a 1-year deal. So for 2026, FAU needing to continually improve. Noel Williams with Jalen Watson and Josh Williams and Najee Johnson in the final year of their deals, certainly Jalen and Josh. Noel Williams, does he slide in and play opposite Christian Fulton next year or in 2026? Does he play opposite Christian Fulton right now?
Yeah.
Injury issues, things like that. It allows Trent McDuffie now to, we heard him last week about how excited he was to play corner and the exit interview with Steve Spagnuolo and talking about slot corner. And signing Christian Fulton sounded like there was a pretty decent plan, a pretty high probability plan that he was going to slide back on the inside at least for a little bit. Noel Williams only plays on the outside. Christian Fulton only plays outside. Jalen Watson plays outside. Shamari Connor probably moving back to more of a safety role. It makes perfect sense that now sliding down on the inside to play slot corner is going to be Trent McDuffie. So you get better from that spot. And just overall, just from an overall standpoint of this year versus the next couple of years, I liked what they were able to accomplish. I want to get into the order in which the players were selected, and if you switch those around, maybe the view of the draft overall.
I do want to say with McDuffie going back to the slot, too, for the Chiefs, you want him to play in the slot for contract negotiations. Slot corners make less than outside corners.
Although I don't know that the Chiefs would play it that way.
I don't know if they would either.
Or McDuffie would be okay with playing it that way. But I see what you're talking about.
I have found that interesting for a while of when they moved him to the outside. I go, okay, that's great and all, but now he's going to be more valuable and more expensive.
They did that with L'Jarius Sneed. He was playing the slot, playing inside, but playing the slot. And then his final year with the Chiefs, he played outside.
Yeah.
And then he got outside money.
Now I'm an outside cornerback money. By the way, to another one of your points of if the first round pick doesn't hit, it makes it so much more difficult for the rest to pick it up because you look at 2020. I think that's the one that stands out because that was Clyde, right? That was the first-round pick.
Yep.
But then Willie Gay Jr., does that count as a hit? I think he was fine. He was fine.
For a second-rounder, I think he lived up to what a second-round linebacker would be.
So Niang obviously didn't, but L'Jarius Sneed was phenomenal. Mike Dana in the 5th clearly was a hit, and then you had Bo Pete Keys. It was a little bit of a lighter draft with only 6 picks.
And the problem with Bo Pete Keys is that you traded a 6th rounder the next year to trade back in to get him.
Sure.
So that hurts that draft too because of what it took to get him.
So you had 3 good players, the Willie Gay Jr., a great player, I think, L'Jarius Sneed, and then a really solid one in the 5th with Michael Dana Jr. But again, that first rounder, that's the one we still talk about. You still talk about Clyde. So you're right.
Yeah.
If it is Simmons is the one that doesn't hit, but the other guys, let's just say 3 more players have one guy hits completely, 2 guys are really solid contributors. You'd still probably sit here and go, yeah, but that first round, that's the one. That's the one that could have been what could have been.
Last year's draft was, Xavier Worthy as a first rounder certainly lived up to the billing of a first rounder. Kingsley, they quickly moved on or moved off of him being a tackle after, unfortunately, Trey Hendrickson broke him. I mean, just broke the game. What's high score mean? Can we not play anymore? I don't know. What does that mean? Is the game broken? Jared Wiley tears his ACL. When we talk about tight end as a need, well, we'll see what Jared Wiley looks like this year coming back from ACL. Jaden Hicks, starting safety this year. Hunter Norzad, I think there's a chance Hunter Norzad might be the guard this year.
Yeah.
Might be playing guard, or at least Allegretti. If Hunter Norzad becomes Allegretti. Haddon's gone. C.J. Hansen threw a dart, wanted him as an undrafted free agent, so instead of having to deal with other teams, you take him in the 7th round as to get a priority free agent.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you come away with Nick Allegretti in the 5th round in Norzad, Kingsley is starting left guard, a number 1/number 2 receiver in Xavier Worthy growing into that role, and a backup tight end in the 4th round, and a starting safety in the 4th round.
Yeah.
Not too bad of a draft. Problem is, so much was put on Kingsley's plate because Xavier Worthy, it's going to be nice him coming along, but he's more of a speed guy. But Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown and Kelsey, that's what this offense is going to be. And Xavier Worthy's going to make an impact, but he's going to make an impact because he's on the field and he has to be accounted for. Kelsey having a down year, Rashee Rice injured, Hollywood injured. It becomes a lot about Xavier Worthy. But it was really Kingsley starting left tackle, Kingsley. They could have got him in the 1st round. We thought maybe they might trade back from the 1st round and get Kingsley. And then he failed. And it was a big portion of the draft last year was viewed through the lens of Kingsley Suamataia.
Yeah.
And I don't know the last time we've ever viewed a draft through the lens of a 2nd rounder outside of Breeland Speaks, I guess. Was the last time we viewed a draft as in that draft sucked. Why? Breeland Speaks. So, okay, yeah. Because, it wasn't the best draft. You got Breeland Speaks, you got Derek Nottie.
Yeah.
But you had Dorian O'Daniel, Armani Watts, Tremont Smith, and Khalil McKenzie.
Yeah, his first draft, he improved from there.
Yes, he improved a lot from that standpoint because the next year you got McCole and Juan Thornhill and Colin Saunders and Rashad Fenton and Allegretti in the 7th.
Yeah.
It's not bad. And then 2020, the 1st rounder was.
We talked about,
I think that was more of trying to play with, quote, house money. Like, we can go anywhere. They also sort of seems like they wanted to trade back. And there wasn't a trade partner at that point. But I liked what they did, but we have to see these guys on the field.
Yes.
We have to see what they do on the field. Jack, you were on Friday night. What'd you make of the Friday night selections in Omar Norman Lott, Ashton Gelati, and Noel Williams, but also the rest of the draft since you were on the air on Friday and obviously Saturday wrapping up the draft with the final 3 selections that they had?
It didn't surprise me with the Omar Norman Lott pick. I will say he wasn't on my radar. I'm not going to act like I knew that pick was coming, and that's what it's been like under Brett Veach in day 2 and day 3 of the draft is sometimes they take somebody you didn't even know was in the top 10 of this draft, but they clearly like the fit. They like the scheme fit for these guys. And after they took Gelati with their next pick there, I was sold it was going to be a wide receiver. I thought for sure, and talking to Andy Sweeney, too, who was out at Arrowhead, he said, I feel this is probably going to be a skill position player because you went defensive line heavy with picks 1 and picks 2. Now it's setting you up to go with a wide receiver. And who was available still? There were a lot of guys out there.
Jalen Royals was still out there, and I'm like, hey, man, if you can get Jalen Royals here, that would be nice.
And that was one of the names I thought of, too. But you go with Noel Williams, and so it was all defense in day 2. But then you have someone like Jalen Royals fall to you in day 3 of the draft, and then you get your running back in the 7th round in Smith. And with the talking point we just had about how you view a draft, whether it be a failure or a success, a lot of it is going to hinge on Josh Simmons and if he becomes a true starting left tackle, right tackle in the NFL. To me, it's also about the position. Like when you think about the fan base and what they crave, it's a lot of offense, it's a lot of explosive plays. And let's say Josh Simmons doesn't work out. To me, then it probably comes down more to what Royals does and what Smith does. Because if Smith becomes the Isaiah Pacheco and he's your next 800 to 1,000-yard rusher, and Royals becomes this surprise number 3, number 4 guy, and you get a lot of productions there, that eases the blow from a bad first-round pick. Whereas if Omar Norman Lott becomes Derek Nottie, I believe that would be a fine pick. You're getting sustainability on the interior, but it doesn't pop in the same way a wide receiver hitting in the 4th round does, or a running back in the 7th round. So there is a lot of pressure on Simmons here. But I would say for the defensive line guys, I believe Noah Williams has to be something because you traded up a lot, 10 spots to go get him, and used your 4th round.
You traded Joe Tooney.
Yeah.
You traded Joe Tooney to move up to get him, is what you did. You traded next year's Joe Tooney pick. When I heard they traded a 4th rounder, I thought for sure it was their 4th rounder for next year.
Yeah.
And then they clarified and said, no, it's the Bears pick. I'm like, okay, so you took your 3rd rounder and Joe Tooney to move up 10 spots to get Noah Williams. Can't miss on him.
Yeah, a contract obviously is going to play a factor.
For sure.
But yeah, Noah Williams I'm intrigued with because now they have more of a playmaker. They don't really have any ball hawks, and he obviously had 14 interceptions or something in his college career.
7 last year.
7 last year.
Cam Ward actually too.
So I like that because the Chiefs, again, this is a little different from what they've traditionally gone with in the secondary right now. They love guys who are sticky. They like the Travarius Ward type, the L'Jarius Sneed type. McDuffie again, kind of the same. Where he's not going to get you a lot of interceptions. They're not going to make mistakes. They're going to be very solid, stay in the hip pocket. They're not going to gamble. You're going to see a little more gambling from Noah Williams. I'm not saying he's Marcus Peters. I don't want to use that comp, but he is a guy who's more of a playmaker. So I kind of like it from that instance of trying something different flavor back there. You know my thoughts on Omar Norman Lott. I talked about it on that Friday at the Deck Supply. I said keep an eye out on Omar Norman Lott. A blind squirrel got his nut. Right? We got him.
We also talked about Omar Norman Lott when we went through the exercise and I did like 50,000 mock drafts. And the thing that we brought up on like 3 of them when I kept trading back, and one of the drafts that I had like 9 selections and I kept trading back, anytime I traded back to the bottom of the 2nd round, the player I ended up with was Omar Norman Lott at the bottom of the 2nd round. It's like, well, I came away with Omar Norman Lott. It was probably the most criticized draft pick, though, was Omar Norman Lott.
Because it was a little early. He's a little undersized. He is a little bit of a tweener. He was at Tennessee, right? He was a lot of sub packages at Tennessee. But again, I think Turk Wharton is such a good comp for him, and you're hoping it's Turk Wharton last year. You don't have the massive ramp-up period. He played at Tennessee, not Missouri S&T. Pretty big difference here. You're expecting to see more of the early production of Turk Wharton, what he did last year. I'm not saying 8.5 sacks this year, but can he start at 4 or 5? Can he start from a higher point than Turk did when he first came into the NFL? I really like Omar Norman a lot because you finally have some juice. You can find those Mike Pinnells, those Derek Notties. Those aren't, I'm not trying to say they're easy to find, but it's a lot easier to find or at least sign a veteran run stuffer in Mike Pinnell. Trying to find a pass rusher on the interior to pair with Chris Jones, that is pretty difficult. Okay, so that's why Mr. Mayaki. That's why I do
drugs are bad and good.
That's why I do like the Omar Norman Lott pick. I love the chance on, again, slightly undersized, a little bit of a tweener, but I love it. And by the way, can Jalen Royals please be number 85 or 15?
Gotta be. I love that idea. I heard Steven talking about it this morning. You may have thought of it before. I don't know.
I did not hear Steven, so
You're gonna have to pay a lot for 15.
Sorry, SSJ. Yeah, 15's shoot. Well, that was dumb. Hey, Patrick, I'm
Did you
sorry,
say,
man.
Did you say 15?
I said 85 or 15.
Well, then
hey,
you've now been eliminated.
Hey,
Mahomes
Patrick.
was 5
No,
at one point.
Patrick, switch your number for
He could go back to
this
5?
rookie wide receiver who's going to be wide receiver 5.
Patrick didn't want to switch his number from his rookie year to his 2nd year to take 5 that he had worn his entire life. Why would he now switch from 5? Obviously, that's not happening.
For the bit.
85.
For the bit.
Yes, 85. What do we got? Is it Hendershot and Tanyan are the 2 players that are? Or no, it's Ferkser.
Anthony
Ferkser
baby.
and Robert Tanyan are wearing number 85 right now. I feel like that's available. I feel like 85 is available if he would. And that was my high school number too, so I feel like,
That's why. It's not even because the Royals 85.
No, it's like you should wear number 85. It's a really cool number, Rob Moore, you did. Things like that. But yes, he obviously has. For the marketability, he would be smart if he had number 85, because then for some reason this rookie 4th rounder
He'll
has
sell
a ton.
Chiefs jerseys from now until forever, whether he's
ton of
playing on the
Chiefs
team or
jerseys.
not. Yeah.
I was going to, if the Chiefs had signed Gerald Everett, I was going to buy the jersey
your
for Everett
kid, yeah.
because Everett was on the back of his.
Priest Holmes for me.
See, there you go.
Huge
Did you buy that?
Oh, of course. I
Good
have
for
a
you.
Priest Holmes jersey.
You got the Johnson jersey, right?
I did not. No.
I'm just making. There's
I'm trying
a
to think
Johnson's
now.
over
There has to
Larry.
be.
Yeah, there's a lot. See,
it's
I-
Larry,
Yeah.
number 27, Larry.
I had a couple I could have chosen
Time to
from, but no,
take
I
your
don't think I
diapers
ever
off and
did, to
go
be
to
honest
work.
with you.
Let's take a time out, and I want to talk about the draft order and how it colors our conversation and perception about the selections and whether people are happy, sad, mad, indifferent, and what I think may have taken place. And I'll only use it from all the drafts I've been in, like fantasy football drafts and things like that, at least the strategy I have taken. And I think anybody that's played any fantasy sport, whether it baseball, football, basketball, whatever, you've been in a spot like this, which I think is what took place on Friday night. We'll explain what that is coming up next. And by they, specifically, it will be Ryan Nutt, the director of player personnel and college scouting. He's been there for a while. He's one of the guys that we talked about from 2021 to 2024 and this year, the turnover, or at least not turnover, but, and I say this for lack of a better term, and it is no disrespect to anybody that's there. It's just simply a term to use when higher ups, leave, the brain drain that with Poles and Borgonzi and Tillis were part of the draft room. Those guys move on. Nobody fills in that spot. Other guys just take on more responsibility, which is really what has happened. Other guys just move up. So those guys are out. Those guys were all in the room with the same amount of really people, Bradway and Ryan Nutt and these guys that have been there, along with Poles and Tillis and Borgonzi. Now those guys are gone. These guys, take on more responsibility, but he's a guy that's been there around Brett Veach throughout all these drafts. So we'll hear from him coming up at 11 o'clock, recapping the draft. Coming up at noon, We will talk with Jeff Brom, head coach of Louisville. He coached Ashton Gelati and also coached George Karlaftis. So those guys who are similar players have a relationship already. George Karlaftis has already been criticizing Ashton Gelati in his game as they work out together. We were joking when I was visiting family over the summer, and I was like, hey, you know who's here in Louisville right now with me, like working out, 5 blocks from me? And George Karlaftis is here, going through workouts because his defensive line coach and DC at Purdue was then there with Jeff Brom's staff, and he was working out with Ashton Gelati, a guy we didn't know that was going to be a Kansas City Chief, but he's also, working out with a Yaya Diaby and a Yasir Abdullah and different defensive linemen that have been in that system that have come through. And Yaya was not a first-round draft pick and was, was he defensive rookie of the year? Or had like 7 or 8 sacks or something about Yaya Diaby. I forget. I apologize. There's only so much space up there. There's not much space to begin with, and there's only so much when something enters. It's one in, one out, constantly. One piece of, and there was a lot more information this weekend, so things had to be pushed out.
Algebra is just gone.
Sorry, junior year of college. I don't remember you anymore. The draft happened.
I wish it was Gillette, though, because then you could just make T-shirts that say the best a man can get, the best an edge rusher can get.
But you get gelati, though. You get a nice little treat on top of your sack. What's a sack?
Gelato is it's a nice little treat. Refreshing.
And I think he called him Spagnoli, which I like. He already had a Chiefs hat, a Chiefs shirt, because his uncle is a diehard Chiefs fan for some reason. And he's like, why is he a Chiefs fan? He goes, I don't know. He's from Ohio or Florida. It's like, I have no idea, but that's been his game. That's been his thing. Omar Norman Lott was at either a mall or what I believe to be a hotel, but he wasn't in like the hotel, room or like a big, like his either hotel room or a specific like boardroom or something like that where you can have a party. He was like out where those big hallways where there are shops at some of those big hotels. He was in Las Vegas. The only reason I know he was in Las Vegas is because I was looking at the sign behind him that was changing, that was promoting different things around town, and there was a Tom Jones, there was Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
there was a
promoting the Sphere.
There was a cigar lounge that was there, and so I looked up all 3 of them, and all 3 of them around the same time. There's this cigar lounge that has like 5 locations in the country, one of them in Las Vegas.
Nice job,
Pearl
Pinkerton.
Yeah, you're darn right. Pearl Jam has a show coming up in Las Vegas next month. Tom Jones has like 5 shows coming up early next month, early May in Las Vegas.
Like, hey, there, Chiefs draft.
Like a nice job. Omar Spoker, Brett Veach Spoker, and draft today. All right, so let's get into the nonsense, or not the nonsense. Let's skip past that. Omar Norman Lott has been a guy that is probably the widest range of views on him. In fact, even on Friday when you said Omar Norman Lott, Matt Derrick was like, And I will say that that was the general consensus when they drafted him. And you saw some national people say, so they drafted a backup rotational guy that didn't really come away with sack numbers to rush the passer. And I understand that. I understand why the frustration would be there. Now that we have the whole picture, I am not saying that Omar Norman Lott at number 63, when he, consensus wasn't a top 100 player, and, Dane Brugler that I like, KCSN that I like. Dane Brugler has his 15th defensive tackle. KCSN had him as their 16th defensive tackle. Both of them had 3rd/4th round grades on them.
Sure.
Certainly not the number 63 pick in the 2nd round. But here's where I compare what I think could have taken place in the war room in the 2nd round with 63 sitting there. What could have taken place is we heard Brett Veach talk about the defensive line was bolstered by the edge, by the defensive ends. Defensive tackle, there are some players there, but this is a deep defensive line group because of the edge position. How many times have you been in a fantasy football draft or baseball, whatever, and you're sitting there with a couple of positions you'd like to fill, and you're looking around the board and you're looking around other teams and you're going, well, I've got like 5 cornerbacks. Or if we're talking about fantasy, I've got like 5 running backs in this tier, and I've got like 5 wide receivers in this tier that are all clumped together, and I would be fine coming away with either of them. But this is the only tight end that I have left on this tier. If I don't take this guy, then I'm going to be left with a scrubby guy, whereas do I take this 5th running back and 5th wide receiver in these 2 tiers that I have that are sort of the same, and this tight end, am I better if I come away with those 3, even though I probably don't need to take this tight end right here? I think there's a decent chance that's what took place in the room. Because let's say the Chiefs, in their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks, those 4 selections, let's say, all right, they're going to come away with an edge, a defensive tackle, a cornerback, and a wide receiver. And those guys, according to Dane Brugler, are going to be ranked 63, 66, 78, and not in the top 100. According to KC Sports Network, those guys are going to be ranked 46, 66, 93, and 146. Okay. So with the 63rd pick, the Chiefs take Jalen Royals in the 2nd round, the 63rd player on Dane Brugler's board, the 46th player on KCSN board. With the 66th pick, they take Noel Williams, ranked 66th on Dane Brugler's board. With the 85th pick, they take Ashton Gelati, ranked 78th on Dane Brugler's board. And with the 133rd pick, they take Omar Norman Lott, a guy who's outside the top 100 in Dane Brugler's board, but 146 on KCSN's board. What's the view of the draft at that point? And so what I think could have happened is the Chiefs looking at it and saying, there are edges that we like, and we're only a couple of picks away, so we got to get through 64 and 65 to get to Ashton Gelati, who they clearly liked. There are some cornerbacks here that we like. There's a group of them. There's some wide receivers that we like. There's a group of them. But clearly they weren't, oh my God, if we miss out on Jalen Royals, we're screwed, because they had 2 more selections before they took him. They're sitting there at 63. They went 70 more picks before they took Jalen Royals, a guy who I would have been fine with if they took him in the 2nd round because of what, or at least how he was viewed and what I thought he could offer to the Chiefs. I didn't think they'd go wide receiver in the 2nd round. But if there's an element of this is the last defensive tackle in this group that we feel like can help us early on, that can give us pass rush ability. We signed Tillery. But are we good with like we have to sit here in the room and say, Spags, Joe, Colin, are we good with Tillery as our pass rushing defensive tackle next to Chris Jones? Rotational piece, Omar Norman Lott, do we have him as a 2nd rounder? Do we have him as a 3rd rounder? We might have him as a 3rd rounder, but we've got cornerbacks and wide receivers and edges that we really like, and we have abundance of them. Cornerback is deep, edge is deep, defensive tackle's not. If we don't take Omar Norman Lott right now, he ain't going to be there at 133. He's not going to be there at 95, because at that point they had picked 95, not 85. He's not going to be there. We have a group of players that we feel like could be there. We're going to take this guy right here. And I would compare it to the only experience I would have in that, and that is just a generic fantasy draft where I got wide receiver, I got running back, I got my tier 2 of these different things, and I got 5 to 10 players in that. But this is the last tight end I feel like can help me at all, or I'm going to be playing waiver wire this year with this spot. No, thank you. I'm taking that. If that's how it went down, and we just switch the order, Sterling, Jack, whoever, we switch the order and say Jalen Royals in the 2nd round, then Noel Williams, then Ashton Gelati, then Omar Norman Lott, and they align with what the consensus national view was, I don't know that people are upset about the Omar Norman Lott pick. I think it's close to Kingsley. Kingsley didn't work out. That's the worry. It's close to Kingsley because I think at that point for Kingsley, it was the Chiefs saying, we got to have a left tackle. I mean, all we got is Wanya Morris, and Donovan Smith is injured. And do we want to go the route of plug-in? Kingsley we liked. Do we like him at this spot value-wise? Maybe not. But if we don't get him, there's a precipitous drop-off.
Yeah.
So because it might have been, we'll take any of these 3. left tackle, left tackle. Now the Chiefs are 1 pick away still. They were 4 picks away with what felt like 3 tackles left on the board. A tackle went, and they're still a pick away. So they traded up 1 spot to make sure they got Kingsley. He didn't work out, but I feel like Omar Norman-Lott could be in that group of, this is the last guy at this position that we feel like can make an impact for us. There's no Turk. We signed Tillery. We need help at that spot, and there's not much left after this guy.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. They need juice there. Again, do I think I'm an Omar Norman-Lott guy.
I know,
I'm a supporter. It was earlier than I expected.
You would do your Zoom in a hotel, shop as well with mannequins behind you.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Things like people walking by wondering, like, what's this guy talking about? Like, you're excited to be a Chief player? What's that? You're going to win a Super Bowl? That's weird anyway. Where are we heading the strip? But go ahead.
That's just like, no, you walk Vegas. You're like, yeah, okay, guy. Yeah, sure.
Weird. Who's he talking to? There's
Yeah,
different
he's
people
talking
on
to
the,
a cactus.
wearing
Weird guy.
Wearing a Chiefs hat with the tag still on it. Interesting.
But no, again, it was higher than I expected. But I like the way when you break it down in that regard of, okay, well, if he was your 4th round pick and you had Williams or Royals there, how do you feel? Well, you feel pretty darn good. Again, I do think the Chiefs really needed a guy with juice on the interior defensive line. That was a spot that I had the most concerns and questions about heading into the draft. They at least, I don't want to say solved, but they at least threw a body at that. It's a lot different than Keandre Coburn. Keandre Coburn was supposed to be the Derek Nottie fix, right? If you remember that in the 6th round a few years ago.
That's right. That's a good point.
They're finally bringing, in my opinion, a interior defensive lineman with some juice. I understand he's not going to be maybe an every down guy, but Turk Wharton wasn't either, and we all love Tershawn Wharton. This again is, I think, I'm not saying 8.5 sacks this year, but I think you're looking at a guy who can perpetually do that in years 2, 3, and 4. This year, you're hoping to get some sort of floor from him to get him adjusted to the rigors of the NFL. But yeah, man, I like the thought process of trying to get someone with some pass rush acumen next to Chris Jones, help that, alleviate that, and then maybe if Chris Jones does kick out, it's not a black hole on the inside. You're still getting something up the middle. So overall, I like that pick. Noah Williams, again, I'm very intrigued just because of the different flavor he is as a more playmaker guy with a ball hawk, if you will. The Chiefs don't really have that in the secondary right now, so I like that. And then Royals, of course. Again, the value there was just insane.
Yeah.
Just insane. So I love the way you broke it down. Again, I know we love Dane Brugler, we love KCS team, we love all the work they do putting this together, but these aren't the end-all, be-all. We saw Mel
Not their
Kiper.
board.
We saw Mel Kiper having an absolute fit on TV because of Shadur Sanders, but clearly the NFL viewed it differently.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe teams viewed Omar Norman-Lott differently than the way that some of these consensus
I thought it
boards
was
did.
odd when the Chiefs took Omar Norman-Lott, Jack, and Mel Kiper was saying that Shadur should have been the pick there because he's better than Patrick Mahomes. I thought that was odd for Mel Kiper. By the way, I don't know that I'm far off in what Mel Kiper sounded like about Shadur Sanders for the entire weekend's temper tantrum that he threw. And as a quick aside, including the fact that, I don't know Jackson Dart from anybody else, but he spent the Jackson Dart draft pick talking about all the negative things about Jackson Dart's game. This was from Thursday night.
Yeah.
All the negative things of Jackson Dart's game as to why Shadur Sanders should have been picked there.
Just brutal, man.
Instead of like celebrating
brutal.
Jackson Dart, man, this is a guy that can do this. Here's a guy that like all of the Mel Kiper stuff,
Yeah.
but instead all he was doing was saying he sucked against this team. He was terrible against this team. He had this and he's got this hole in his game. He can't do this. He can't do that. This should have been Shadur Sanders. Like, dude, bleep off, man. Anyway, Jack, your thoughts on what we just talked about is sort of the order of the pick and the floating conversation of where, value based off, PFF and Brugler and KCSN and different draft boards.
Yeah, I think you're probably feeling really good about the way the draft order fell. If you took Royals in the 2nd round, you go from, man, I hope he catches on as a number 4, number 5 wide receiver to clearly they have some big-time expectations for him to compete for a top 4, maybe a top 3 spot in the wide receiver room in training camp. And then when you look at someone like Omar Norman-Lott, in day 3 of the draft, if he's one of the final picks you have, he's on the interior, you're not expecting too much out of him. Because let's all be honest here. With a defensive tackle, you can blend in even if you're struggling. Like when it stands out is when some team's running the ball down your throat, they're gashing the middle, and then you go back and see the replay, and and one guy's getting bulldozed every single time. Whereas if you're a wide receiver, you're a cornerback, or you're a tackle like Suamataia last year, you stand out if you struggle. So with Omar Norman-Lott, I mean, it might be pretty tough to tell early on, unless he's just not getting on the field, whether he's doing really well or he's not doing very well. Even at the edge position, we get a pretty good look because we see those snaps where they're not getting any movement, they're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. With a defensive tackle, I kind of view it like a guard as well in the offensive line. You can blend in if you've got better players around you, and fortunately for him, he's got a Hall of Famer next to him where he just has to win those one-on-one battles. That remains to be seen, though, at the NFL level.
Let's take a timeout on the other side. We'll get into if we have a favorite pick from the weekend or a least favorite pick. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know. But let's get into who we are most excited about, favorite pick from the weekend. And then we'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs. Ryan Nutt will talk at 11 o'clock. Jeff Brom joins us at noon to talk about Ashton Gelati. We'll talk some Royals today. Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast, will join us at 12:30. Apparently, there's only enough room for minimal Royals in town because they draft Jalen Royals and then the Royals can't win again. I mean, just like they have not won a game since I guess they drafted Royals on in the afternoon on Saturday. Damn it! And then the Royals won that night. Let's just say the Royals are a 500 team since they drafted Jalen Royals. You know what I mean? There's you can't win them all, right? No, they have their 6-game winning streak snapped, but Bobby Witt continues his 19-game hit streak. And I'm 1 hit away on Tuesday night in Tampa, Clearwater, wherever, in the minor league stadium for my tweet when they played the Rockies. And he had that bottom of the 8th little dribbler to the right side in his final at bat that he beat out. It didn't end up being his final at bat because of the 9th inning where we know what Estevez. But at that time, it's like, wow, he continued his hit streak. Is now at 13 or 14. And I tweeted out, when something like that happens with a guy who's going as hot as Bobby, this thing's getting to 20. Because usually it's like, oh, he had
You're
that.
You're beating Joe.
And I said,
you said it.
One more. Come on. He's essentially DiMaggio. I mean, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. We'll take a time out. Favorite picks, least favorite picks, if we have those, coming up next. Gushed over one particular player already, so I think people may, if you're listening to the first part of the show, may know my favorite pick of the draft, and that's, Jalen Royals was a guy that, third round, thought maybe pick number 85, and then Daniel Holmes and I tweeting on Saturday about the fact that Jalen Royals was still there, and it's like, I don't know why he's still there. He was tweeting like the Chiefs should go up and get him. Like they should trade up and get this guy. They didn't have to. They stood at 133, and they still got Jalen Royals. I didn't know that they would take him. I thought maybe running back at that point. Are they going to go DJ Giddens? Giddens ended up going in the 5th round to the Colts. Neal went 6th round to the Saints. And then the Houston Texans, we found out, are completely obsessed with Kansas City. Completely obsessed with Kansas City. Let's take Jalen Noel. Let's take our Auntie Ursary. Let's take Graham Mertz. It's all Kansas City to us. All about Kansas City, Kansas City, Kansas City. I thought it was odd when people said they didn't do well in the draft and they blamed it on the refs. Anyway, do you have a favorite selection, Sterling?
That was good, by the way.
Thank you.
I was going to say maybe they draft him so they can try to see if they can get some flags their way.
Can you be any more obsessed with the Kansas City, Houston? Anyway.
Yeah, I had a couple. I don't love the value of Omar Norman-Lott. That's probably my favorite player that was drafted to Kansas City.
Okay.
But again, the value
just
wasn't
because
there.
you said his name on Friday and now you got to double down.
No.
I stand by the pick.
Really?
Hey, I stand by it. Okay, come on, baby. No, I think there was two, but I'll go with one that I think again value-wise was fun. Rashad Smith.
Yeah.
Final pick of the draft. I like that. 4.39. You bring some juice. You bring some speed into. That's a juice way too many times today. You bring some speed into the running back room that you didn't have. Again, I would have liked to maybe see a larger investment into the running back room. But when you get Jalen Royals where you get them, and some of these picks the way that board fell, I'm not going to complain about it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to be an every down guy by any means. But you don't need him to be an every down guy.
Yeah.
You can have Pacheco for first or second. You can have a change of pace. And so I actually really like that in the 7th round.
Yeah, I do too. And again, our perception, how we view it, KCSN had him listed as a 4th round grade. Dane Brugler had him listed as a 4th or 5th round grade.
That's what I'm saying, value-wise.
If they drafted him in the 5th round instead of Bossa, you're like, oh, well, they got a running back in the 5th round. 7th round, you're like, oh, they just threw a dart at a running back. Well, they got Pacheco, but I like that, especially the receiving ability for him. That I think he's just going to be a piece that you use, and I think it might be tough news for Elijah Mitchell that they drafted Rashard Smith, not necessarily Pacheco. But Jack?
Yeah, mine's a pretty clear runaway here. I'm going with Noah Williams, mainly because of the success Brett Veach has had in drafting guys for the secondary, and I believe he's the absolute perfect fit for Spags' secondary. 6'1", 200. I watched a little bit of the highlights on him, the tape on him. He is an incredibly physical cornerback. So, you've been looking for guys that you can put outside. You bring in Christian Fulton, Jalen Watson, hopefully healthy this time around. I'm not going to be shocked whatsoever if he's getting a significant amount of snaps before week 5.
I'm with you on that one. That would have been my second pick. It's like Jalen Royals and Noel Williams. But both those guys are ranked right around, again, the beast in Dane Brugler. Royals was ranked 63rd and Noel Williams was ranked 66th overall. And you got those guys at 85 and 133. So great value there. But I like Noel Williams because it allows Trent McDuffie to go back and play at the slot where he was brilliant. He was still good. I mean, he was all pro as a cornerback outside too. It ain't exactly like you're taking away his ability, but so many things that he does in the slot, from blitzing and I like McDuffie playing in the slot, and this guy being as physical as he is, and Noel Williams saying, well, I got to come up and stop the run. Every inch counts in the NFL and football. Love that mentality. We'll talk with Jeff Brom coming up an hour from now. Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast coming up at 12:30. Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41 sports director. We got some learn, funniest best. A lot of things learned over the weekend, I'll tell you that much. Learned over the weekend. I learned the Falcons defensive coordinator's son's name. I learned that one over the weekend.
That's always good, right? You want to learn the kids' names typically of
a lot of people
coordinators.
I could have guessed it was something like Jax or something along those lines.
You just got jaxed.
You got jaxed. What an idiot. Text 913 912-4810 says, are you insinuating that the Chiefs picked based on need and not best available? I like the sarcasm there.
Maybe he's being
that they're going
serious.
with. I think there is. I think maybe there's a combination of that.
Yeah.
But I do think that second round in Norman Lott was based. I don't think it's primarily on need. They needed help at the defensive line and the defensive tackle spot. And I think there's an element of he was maybe the last in a tier of players that they wanted to bring in to help out, especially in the passing game and pass rushing right away. And they got two guys that rushed the passer at 63 and 66.
They didn't need a defensive tackle, but they had to have a defensive tackle. I think your point is the best one, where they're in tiers, and that was the final guy in that tier for them.
Yeah.
And again, I do think going into the draft, in my personal opinion, defensive tackle was the position most of need. Cornerback actually thought was, again, the most underrated position of need, and they addressed it, and it wasn't a 5th, 6th, 7th round flyer. This was a legit investment at cornerback now, as you mentioned, using that Joe Tooney pick as ammunition. So this is a legit investment into the secondary, and so that to me is, again, for all the talk and how good they've been on the 5th, 6th, and 7th round drafting corners, late round guys, that well's dried up a little bit recently.
Is there a selection you're not as big a fan of outside of Josh Simmons? Since we talked about that on Friday, I'll be honest, there isn't one for me that I look at and go, man, I'm not a fan of that. Would I have preferred if they could have grabbed somebody that maybe was a defensive tackle in the 2nd or 3rd or later on, and I don't know, maybe you get a better edge. It's 63 and 66. They're interchangeable right there, so it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
But Noel Williams and Jalen Royals changed things for me in the 3rd and 4th round. So I don't really have a selection that I'm not really enamored with it. The value didn't seem great with Omar Norman Lott, but it did feel like a lot of the mock drafts, that late 2nd round is kind of where he was going anyway. So I don't really have a selection that I'm like, man, I hate this pick. I'm not a fan of this pick at all. I don't know how many of those have been in the past. I wasn't a fan of the Edwards-Helaire pick in the 1st round. We've talked about that and discussed that, you don't have anything. There's no such thing as a luxury pick in the NFL. And even as Brett Veach said, he'd like to not have to attack the left tackle spot. But even if you figure that out, then there's going to be another position that opens up that you got to go and fill, and that's just how this industry works. That's how the NFL works.
So I think everyone knows my 1st round thought process on Josh Simmons, where, again, it's fine. I'm whelmed. I just have way more questions. The Chiefs medical staff, though, knows way more than me, so I'll obviously trust them. They nailed it with Trey Smith, but that was also a 6th rounder, not a 1st rounder. I just have a lot of questions, again, in regard to the Chiefs' development of tackles to begin with. Andy Heck is still there. Feels like the tackle position as a whole has not grown. You're not getting the best of guys here in KC at tackle specifically. Why is this different? It's a larger investment as far as the upside versus a Kingsley versus a Wanye, a Lucas Niang. Yet, are they actually going to let this guy stick through and take his lumps in games? Or is it a situation where he plays 4 games, he struggles, oh no, he's not our guy? Yeah, I just have more questions than answers when it comes to Josh Simmons. I get it. Everyone keeps talking about if he reverts back to what he once was pre-injury. That's a big if. So again, I'm whelmed with Josh Simmons. I think Ashton Gillotte, I don't want to say Gelati, sorry. I don't dislike it. I just like Landon Jackson from Arkansas, and he went 5 picks after to the Bills.
I'm with you on that one. That's where it's like
that's the name I want to.
They took Gelati, and I was like, I understand where they're going with, but I was becoming more and more enamored and excited about what Landon Jackson would look like in a Chiefs uniform.
When the Texas A&M Nick Scourton.
Yeah, Scourton.
When he went,
every of the A&M players were selected off their defensive line.
When he went early, I go, okay, so that's off the board. But then with Landon Jackson still there from Arkansas, I thought that was the way they were going to go at that pick. They didn't. I guess so. In my mind, I'm not disappointed, but I just one that I want to keep an eye on. What does Ashton versus Landon in the NFL
Of course, it's the Bills, so pretty easy to have some comps there since we've seen it before with Keon Coleman and Xavier Worthy. Nice that he leads into the Bills, so it's easy to keep tabs on. But that's, I guess, one pick that again, not disappointed. I just want to keep an eye on. Jeffrey Bassett, linebacker from Oregon.
Yeah.
Again, 5th-round draft pick linebacker. I'm excited about, but I'm cautious because different player, all that stuff. His underlying metrics are like identical to Dorian O'Daniel. I mean, like they are. Him and Dorian O'Daniel have like identical combine numbers. I mean, bench press even 21, arm length almost identical, hand size, height, weight, nearly identical. I mean, it's
4th round, 5th round.
It's absolutely hilarious. You go down to the combine numbers. 10-yard splits 1.59, 1.59. Broad jump 9'10", 9'11". Dorian O'Daniel was a little quicker in like the 3-cone drill, stuff like that. But again, I'm not complaining. I just think it's something to monitor. Like, it's just funny to me. That was more of just a comp of, wow, those underlying numbers are identical.
Yeah. 913-912-4810. Text says, feels like the floor for this draft class is higher and the ceiling is lower. Not a bad thing at all, just going off your takes, and then says, Royals 85 forever. I think that's a decent – I would say the Josh Simmons is – outside of Josh Simmons, I think there's an element of, okay, are you getting a level of player that you have an idea right now what they will be? Because Josh Simmons is sort of a boom or bust guy. Because if the injury never recovers and doesn't get back to pre-draft, then, I don't know what the floor is going to be for him if he's got a bad knee the rest of his career. If it does get back to what it was pre-draft, then you do have a ceiling guy in this draft. That's a high ceiling. I don't know what the floor would be for Josh Simmons in the 1st round.
I actually, which is funny because I am a floor guy typically, and I do think there are some guys with floor. Ashton Gelati, I think, is a floor guy, right? I think that's going to be more of your floor guy.
High floor, George Karlaftis type player.
Yes. I actually think Josh Simmons and Omar Norman Lott have such high variance, which, again, if you know me and you ever listen to me, I'm typically a floor guy for the Chiefs specifically. I typically am. But I think Simmons and Omar Norman Lott have very high variances. You mentioned Josh Simmons because it's either he's probably a stud or he might not even play football. Like, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Again, Omar Norman Lott, kind of the same thing, where it's like, okay, where he might not even fit in the NFL because he's a little bit of a tweener and he's a sub-package guy. Or is he going to be Tershawn Wharton year one and bust out and be an absolute stud because he has the pass rush acumen, the advantage on the inside.
Yeah.
A little more quickness there. I think Noah Williams, to an extent, kind of is a high floor or a high ceiling guy. Maybe
I think he's more of a floor guy.
But when I say that, it's because he is more of a ball hawk. Mm-hmm. He is more of a guy that, like, when I think of floor guys, I do think of, I think of guys who aren't going to gamble. I don't know if Noah Williams is going to necessarily gamble per se, but when you get 7 interceptions, 14 in your college career, you're taking more chances than the average guy.
I'm not, I don't want to take away from anything that Noah Williams accomplished in college, and especially this last year with leading the country in interceptions. That's legit. But I do think there's some context there where there were 4 or 5 interceptions that were tipped off somebody else, and he was standing there. A quarterback was being pressured, and he threw it up in the air, and he was there. An overthrow, and he was there. I'm more like those are like, okay, that's fine. Like he's intercepting the ball, he's catching it, so that's good. He's not dropping it, so there's something to be said for that. To me, it's more of the interception that he had when he was going down the left sideline, I think it was, and he was cutting off space between the red line and the out of bounds line, and pushing that wide receiver over there so it was less and less space, and then turning and catching it. Those are the plays that I'm like, all right, that's legit. The passes defensed when he's turning his head at the last second and knocking the ball away, maybe not intercepting it. Those are the things that I like out of Noah Williams. The standing in and catching a punt, an arm punt, or a bad overthrow by a quarterback, or one to where you're not guarding that guy and it's tipped up in the air and it lands in your hands. Those are fine.
Sure.
You need to be able to catch those things. But I think he's the way I would view him as a floor guy. Maybe he will be a high ceiling. That'd be great. But I view him as a floor guy because I think there's a level of expectation of what you're going to get right now. You're going to get a guy who's physical, solid cornerback on the outside, in press man, and does have the skills around the football when it's in the air and comes up and hits. What I think of like a high ceiling guy is when they took L'Jarius Sneed in the 4th round from safety, cornerback, Louisiana Tech, and that was, well, he played cornerback a couple of years. They moved him to safety, but he's off the charts in arm length and athleticism and physicality because he played safety. Like, if this guy can turn his traits into play on the field and technique, you might have something really good on your hands. And we talked about that on draft night, that one of the things, or on that Saturday because it was a 4th rounder, as part of the draft show. And my opinion on L'Jarius Sneed, I liked the pick. And the reason I liked the pick, I talked about it at the time, was cornerback to me is one to where the athletic profile traits are a prerequisite to playing the position. Like, you have to have, like we said, oh, what's the point of the combine? For a cornerback, I think it's a decent, it's a pretty decent tell that if you're not a great athlete, good luck playing cornerback in the NFL. If you don't have the stop start, if you don't have the 10-yard split, if you don't have the high end 40, if you don't have the vertical jump, if you don't have the long arms, L'Jarius Sneed had all of those. Now, Joshua Williams had a decent amount of those as well. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think Joshua Williams was a low floor, high ceiling guy.
Agreed.
And L'Jarius Sneed was that too. And you saw what happens when a guy with those traits hits the ceiling. I think Noel is like, here's a level of play, a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And maybe if he's even better, he might get to an 8 if we're saying Trent McDuffie is a 10. Where L'Jarius Sneed, here's like a 3, or because even in college they moved him off cornerback. But if he hits on all of these different things, he might be a 9 or a 10. There's a wider variance. I think Noel, there's a level of like, and why I think early on he could be playing opposite Christian Fulton or pushing Fulton or Jalen Watson for playing time. That's what I love about this pick, is that now there's legit competition. Last year, the competition between Watson and Williams and Najee Johnson to play opposite Trent McDuffie felt like every time we heard somebody talk on the defense coaching staff, it was somebody wasn't stepping up. Spagnuolo, guys aren't stepping up. Dave Merritt, guys aren't stepping up. It's what they weren't doing.
Yeah.
That now you bring him and Christian Fulton in. Boy, you got some real competition there that if you want to play, you better show that you're good enough to play, because Noel Williams shouldn't have been there in, late 3rd round. And Christian Fulton was there as a free agent. And Jalen Watson, we saw when he was out what it meant to this team, but when he was playing, pretty good player. They've talked about how much they like Najee Johnson. And, this was the first year after an ACL. Okay. Well, if that's true, he's going to get pushed. Those guys are going to figure it out, because there's 2 outside cornerback spots available. Mm-hmm. With McDuffie sliding on down on the inside. It's Fulton, Watson, Noel Williams, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, those guys competing to win those 2 spots.
I love this secondary this year. I am especially the cornerback position, but even safety. I think there's a lot of. I talked about it before they brought him back, and I'm even more thrilled that they actually went with the guy I was talking, Mike Edwards. I made the joke of the Chiefs need to sign a veteran safety with the Mike Edwards skill set, and then it was Mike Edwards, which was like, okay, perfect.
I didn't want Mike Edwards. I said his skill set.
No,
right?
but it makes sense, and so I like all the flavors of the Chiefs secondary right now, all the different skill sets they have. So I'm very excited to see what they do this year. And again, I think this is a little fun game we could play, because the Chiefs do such a great job of making sure their roster could play a game before the draft starts. Of the guys they drafted, who plays the most snaps their rookie season?
I am going to say, I'm going to eliminate Simmons and Norman Lott. I'll eliminate Jalen Royals just because wide receiver.
Why'd you say no to Omar Norman Lott?
Because I think he's going to be a rotational piece.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to eliminate him, because if we're talking rotational piece, looking at the rest of it.
They all might be rotational.
Yeah. That's a great question. Boy, my first thought was Noel Williams.
You can go that way. That means you probably think he's a starter.
Well, he could be a starter or, sub package when you're
Sure.
going to have, 4 cornerbacks on the field, that it could be McDuffie, Williams, Fulton, and then, your 4th cornerback is Noel Williams.
Which
out
we
there.
hardly ever saw last year. They
Yeah.
went with
And you
more
could
four
argue
safeties.
It's
Yeah.
our best draft and develop position.
For sure.
Cornerback.
Absolutely.
It could be Brashard Smith even.
It could be Jalen Royals. Because I don't know what's the health of Hollywood Brown this year? How many games is Rashee Rice going to play? Juju Smith-Schuster has dealt with soft tissue injuries his entire career. I mean, they went and got DeAndre Hopkins because of Juju's hamstring injury.
Yeah.
Now, because Rashee Rice also had a torn ACL and Hollywood Brown had a dislocated collarbone. So there were multiple things as to why they had to go and get DeAndre
That actually
Hopkins.
enhances your point, sir.
Yes. Right. I mean, they had to go and get DeAndre Hopkins because Rice ACL, Hollywood dislocated collarbone, and then Juju Smith-Schuster messed up his hamstring and was out. And it was
Justin Watson this year.
and no Justin Watson. You know what? I think I've talked myself into it. I'm going to go with Jalen Royals because I think he's a guy that has a Rashee Rice aspect to where get him the ball and yards after catch and yards after contact. I mean, there's a reason why the comp for him is Deebo Samuel. Because he's a guy that breaks tackles and is, Utah State got him out in space and let him run those bubble screens. He was pretty damn good in the bubble screens and quick slants. I mean, tons of quick slants. The concern I would have for Jalen Royals is the fact that the Chiefs use their wide receivers all over the field. And I'd say about 95% of the time he lined up out wide on the left side. Yeah. It's like, well, he lines up out wide. On both sides? No, just the left. He's pretty much, you watch Jalen Royals give me on the left side of the line of scrimmage. Left side over there, left side of the line of scrimmage, left side of the line of scrimmage, left side of the line of scrimmage. Well, all right.
We know Andy's playbook's really easy for wide receivers to learn too.
Right,
so.
I know. So I would say, I'm going to say Jalen Royals is the guy that ends up playing the most snaps this year for the rookies.
I like
that's
it.
That's what I'm going to go with is Jalen Royals.
Dylan,
I'm going to go Noel. I'm going to go Noel.
Noel Williams?
Yeah.
I like that.
What about you? Omar Norman Lott?
I didn't think I was going to get asked this question. I just wanted to pose it and then go to break or something so that way I didn't have to answer.
All right, good to know. All right, we'll take a time out, come back.
No, I'll stick with it. I'll go Omar Norman Lott.
Okay.
Because I don't know what to think of Tillery. Mike Pennell's not going to take any of those snaps. He'll take the run snaps, obviously, but in passing down situations, Omar Norman Lott's now
Your in passing situations, I would say he is your interior next to Chris Jones. If you're not in a 3rd and 12 or 13, and Spags will use his KC version of a NASCAR package where Dana or Omenihu will slide down inside and Jones may go to defensive end with Karlaftis. Certainly FAU there is a situational speed, pass rusher specifically. If you go that route, then you won't need Omar Norman Lott or Jerry Tillery. But on a 3rd and 7, a 3rd and 8, where in theory it could be a handoff at that point, where you're going more defensive tackles in the interior and your edges outside, then that's probably where Norman Lott has the nod over Jerry Tillery because we kind of know what Jerry Tillery is.
I think Gelati's going to have a little trouble getting on the field early on. I think FAU is going to take a decent step forward. Now you have Charles Omenihu healthy the entire year, hopefully. Karlaftis takes up so much snaps, and unless they try and give him some workload off, I doubt it.
And that may be the case. Maybe they give him, some time off because he played so many snaps last year. But it wasn't like Karlaftis in the playoffs or Super Bowl was like, oh, he's played so many reps. Oh my God, look, he's toast. It wasn't LeBron and Luka in the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter when they played every single second of the second half, and you're like, last 3 minutes, you're like. Yeah, maybe a rest along the way would have been good for those guys. It wasn't that with Karlaftis. He played a ton of reps, and he was still Karlaftis late in the season too.
Yeah, Luke and LeBron looked like their legs were cinder blocks, man. They were just struggling. But
it's like we've got the Hawkeye vision to where LeBron gets the ball, but also the hand, and so it's a foul. And then in Detroit, you get bumped and bodied and hit in the arm, but can't really overturn it because they didn't have a challenge. So sorry. And we also didn't call it on the court when the refs came out after and was like, yeah, my bad. I guess it was actually a
And
foul.
then Tatum in the Magic game. Did you see
Oh,
that?
yeah, that's-
They went and like reviewed that and were like, "Yep, he clipped him here on the shoulder."
There you
so
go. Just, it barely touched him.
I am not the biggest LeBron guy by any means, but what he's doing at 40 is absurd. One, that should not have been a foul. That's just, if you play ball, that's just like not a foul. I get it. He grazes the hand, but that's like 95% ball. Like, that's just silly to me. And the fact he got up and blocked, I forget who he blocked.
It was, he got, it was DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
At 40 years old doing that, to me, it's absurd. Look at that block if you haven't seen it. I don't care. I'm not a LeBron guy, but that block, 40 years old.
Yeah.
Doing that was dumb. Back to the football talk.
Which is how we compare it to George Karlaftis.
Is how we compare. It's dumb how many snaps he plays. So I think Jelani's going to have trouble getting on the field. Noel Williams, I like that call. I could definitely see him being a starter, and he just runs away with a snap count share. Rashad Smith, I think, is interesting because I wouldn't be shocked if he really took over the running back room. Like, I think it's wide open. I think there's a chance by week 4 we're sitting here going, Smith's the guy. Smith is the guy. I don't think he's going to be an every down guy just because of the size.
He better protect. I mean, if he's he better be a pass protector as a running back.
Yeah.
If he's going to play, because if you can't do that, you can't play.
And then Jeffrey Bass, I think, is going to be a special teams ace. I think he's going to be a special team stud.
Yeah.
So I'm all in.
Special teams guy, and you got a year to learn to play Drew Tranquil's position.
100%. Tranquil has 2 years
Does
left.
he have 2 years left?
But
My
I think
bad.
they can get. Let me confirm.
Yeah,
but
look
because
at
I think
that,
it was a
please.
3-year deal that they could get out after 2. I just want to confirm because you said that, and I was going to look it up, and I forgot.
Okay.
Looking it up right now.
For whatever reason, I was thinking of it as a
He has 2
2-year
more
deal
years
from
left.
last year.
So he has 2 more years left, but they can get out after.
Because I've viewed it as when they signed Tranquil, it was a 2-year deal.
It was a 3-year contract, 2-year deal.
That's the way I had viewed it, is that they gave him a 3-year contract, but it's really 2 years.
But you could keep him for that 3rd year because the 3rd year the cap hit's $7.5 million.
What's the dead cap hit if they move on?
1.5.
Okay, so they'd save $6 million to move on from Tranquil to go to Bassa. That's
But if
kind
he
of,
played great,
Right.
this year, you could.
but it's kind of how you have to move around in the.
Just saying, hypothetically speaking.
In a capped league where you got to make decisions, you got a 5th round contract in the 2nd year to play a spot for a position where you could save $6 million against the cap. And it's not saving $6 million going from 26 to 20.
Yeah.
It's 7.5 to 1.5.
But the reason why I like doing this exercise right here is because, 1, we all had different answers, which is fun. But 2, because the Chiefs don't need these guys year 1. We talk about it pretty often, but the Chiefs very rarely have just these massive holes and massive areas of need. Look around the NFL, how many teams are in the same boat or situation as Kansas City? Hell, even the Eagles really need Jahad Campbell because they had so many injuries at linebacker. Yes, they have Zach Bond, but it got pretty light after that, right? The Chiefs are in such a good spot in what they do. I love Brett Veach's thought process of, hey, if we have to play a game, we're going to make sure we get this before the draft starts. That way you don't put a ton of expectations and pressure on these rookies. Let them develop at their own pace. They can surprise us. Xavier Worthy, to an extent, I think, surprised all of us by what he was able to do as a rookie. Rasheed Rice surprised us, right? But without putting all these expectations on these guys, it allows them to develop at their own pace. I just thought it was a fun exercise, and I really think what the Chiefs have done by getting the depth that they currently have makes this championship window so sustainable.
Yeah, I want to bring this up as you were talking about Brashard Smith as a running back. And if you can't protect, you can't play as a running back. If you're, pass protection has to be a priority. Here's what Dane Brugler wrote about Brashard Smith in a weakness. He says, gets low and gives up his body as a blocker, but angles and technique are underdeveloped. Well, he only played running back for 1 year.
Yeah.
So he's been a wide receiver his whole life and then plays running back for SMU last year. But what I liked about that is I know it's listed as a weakness because of angles and blocking and the technique is underdeveloped. But what I liked in that was gets low and gives up his body as a blocker. Doesn't seem like he's afraid to get his nose dirty when guys are coming to attack the quarterback, when you got blitzers or free rushers to step in and take on the challenge. Even though he's slight of build, it doesn't look like it doesn't sound like somebody that's studied the games of Brashard Smith and has the breakdown and the profile that he gets low and gives up his body, but the angles on how to do it and the technique are underdeveloped. Okay, great. Coaches, take it away.
Yeah.
And also Brashard
Why you
Smith.
pay the coaches.
Yeah. Also Brashard Smith, investment in yourself to learn that, to do that, because we saw in training camp last year some of the most fun battles was Pacheco and Drew Tranquil going up against each other. Like when Pacheco, when it was his turn to pass protect in those drills, there was one day where he was calling out Tranquil.
That's fun.
It was like a backup linebacker. He's like, bleep, no,
Max
Drew.
Holloway.
Yeah. And
Right,
it was like,
he called out Drew to the center of the practice, basically.
absolutely. And it was like, it's my turn. I got to back up. No, Drew, I want you in here. And then Drew Tranquil's turn. It's like, Isaiah, get up here. Come on. Like, that makes you better because those guys were going 100%. There was no backing down because there was pride on the line.
Yeah.
It was
It's a little extra when you go
full-on-
against your guys.
full on intense. And that was Pacheco. He was challenging Tranquil, but he was challenging himself.
Yes.
Because I can get through training camp practice today. I'm a little beaten up, a little tired. All right, I got this third string linebacker. I'm good. I can stay in here and block him and then move on. Bleep that. No. This is something that I have to continue to get better at, and I take pride in. Bring it on, Drew. You're the one that I want to take on in this rep. And Drew Tranquil also, it's like, well, I can go up against, trying to think of who the running back from Memphis was that they signed as an undrafted free agent last year. Not Carson Steele or P. Ryan or those guys, but I can't remember his name, and he was a
yeah.
smaller guy. But it's like if Drew's sitting there like, oh, all right, this guy's there. All right, let me just get through this rep. But it's like, no, I'm going to take on Pacheco. I'm going to take on the guy that keeps challenging me. I'm going to challenge him because, it's my turn. I'm going to win this rep.
How do we see the running back room shake out and play out? Because it's very intriguing right now. The largest contract is probably Elijah Mitchell. If I'm, because this was I think $3.5 million.
Probably, yeah, because Kareem Hunt wasn't that.
But you have Brashard Smith, Kareem Hunt,
Well, you got
Isaiah Pacheco, and then you have
Elijah Mitchell, Carson Steele.
you have four guys. I'm not going to count Carson Steele in this for the moment, but
That's
you have Pacheco, Hunt, Mitchell, and now Brashard Smith. We all think Smith's making the team.
Yeah, I would guess that he's making the team.
He
yeah.
might be the only guy whose spot is safe.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? The rookie's the only running back who I think on the team, barring a drastically bad training camp, of course. But
Spot is safe outside of like Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And when you say that Brashard Smith is the only guy that's the spot is safe,
do you think they keep four running backs? That's my point. Is if they only keep
they did
three,
last year, right? They kept 4 running backs last year.
if you count Steele,
Yeah, I do. And they had a fullback running back, but he's a running back. So yeah, they had 4.
all right.
I'm trying to think of and try to find the other running backs that they signed to undrafted free agents, priority free agents. Where's it at? Quarterback, guard, cornerback. I thought they signed 1 or 2 running backs. Quaylon Jones from Stephen F. Austin is a running back that they signed, and Elijah Young from Western Kentucky is a couple of running backs that they're bringing into to camp. So they didn't exactly go out there and get 4 or 5, 6 different running backs to bring in because it's a position that they're trying to attack from that standpoint. They signed they draft Brashard Smith, who might have been a guy that they brought in if they didn't take him at 228. If he was not drafted, well, then now you got to compete with other teams for this priority free agent. Well, no, they drafted him in the 7th round, so you don't have to worry about him as a priority free agent. And then they have 2 other running backs coming to rookie camp. So you've got, 3 running backs that'll be there at rookie camp? Brashard Smith being one of them. But yeah, I think Hunt and Pacheco, Elijah Mitchell, and probably Brashard Smith, if you're looking at the running back room right now. Because the only one you're missing really is Carson Steele at that point, or an undrafted free agent guy. And I don't know that one of those guys would step up and take a spot. It's different last year when you're like, well, is Carson Steele going to, take somebody's spot? And especially early on when we heard them talk about Carson Steele and say he's a guy you can trust, Remember we had that conversation? It was it Matt Nagy that was talking early in training camp about Steele, and he said, well, Steele's a guy that, when you put him out there, wherever we put him, you can trust him that he's going to do what he's where he's supposed to be, doing what he does, protecting the quarterback. And we were like, oh, that dude is much higher up on the depth chart than we ever gave him credit for, because they use the word trust with him. And as we found out, that guy ends up making the team. Brashard Smith and Elijah, he's a duplicate of Kareem Hunt and, to a degree, Isaiah Pacheco. So you now have Pacheco that can be a first and second down back that offers some power and some juice. You have Kareem Hunt that's going to offer you the vision and the short yardage. And you've got Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith that can offer you the home runs in the outside zone, and especially Brashard Smith in the passing game. Elijah Mitchell there as well, but Brashard Smith in the passing game. I think that's how the running back room will shake out, barring injury, to me, in that you've got four guys that can bring something different and not just feel like you've got a redundancy over and over in that. You've got Pacheco and Kareem and P. Ryan and Steele. So you've got essentially the guys that do the same thing. Like, who's separating themselves with a different skill set out of that group? Well, now you got Elijah Mitchell that can offer the burst and a home run. Brashard Smith that ran a sub 4.4 40 and offers the home run and the ability to be a receiver, not just in the screen game, but a receiver all over the field, being a guy that played receiver most of his life, or at least in college. And then you've got Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and we know what to expect from them. So I like how the running back room looks. I thought maybe they would draft a guy earlier that would be more of an all-around guy. But as we said, are they going to draft an all-around guy, or are they going to draft a specialty guy that offers home run ability? What I was hoping for was a guy that offered home run ability. The Chiefs have been missing that since McKinnon. And I know people, and I wouldn't have been against them drafting somebody that was an every down back. And it's like, all right, well, you got to think of next year because Pacheco's in the final year of his contract. But they had no speed in the running back room. None. And how the offense looked when you had Damian Williams, now obviously what Kareem Hunt was early on in 2018 before, kicked off the team. But you had Damian Williams from that point through the Super Bowl the next year as a home run hitter, a guy that can receive the ball out of the backfield. And then you had Jerick McKinnon in 2021 and what he was able to do when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went down. That's the last time I felt like there was a true, pass-catching, home run hitter running back. Pacheco's been good. Sure. The seventh round, he's been fine. They won a Super Bowl with Pacheco. All got 2 Super Bowls with Pacheco. So it's all good with Isaiah Pacheco out there on the field. He's done his job. But to break free and then take it to the house, it's been a little bit since you felt like they've had that burst in ability, and I think they've got 2 guys now in the room to do that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. We'll hear from Ryan Nutt, the Director of Player Personnel College Scouting, coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone next. Tex says you guys are missing it. Gelati gets the most snaps. He wins the defensive end job over FAU and takes by far the most snaps. Yeah, but FAU's not the starting defensive end on this team right now.
It's a
It's a Minihue. So I mean, if he takes FAU snaps, that's still minimal snaps of what FAU was getting last year.
6 a game.
Now, if he takes Dana's snaps, that would be different. I just think there's a number of players there that can play that position and have shown that they've had success, that he adds depth to that room and down the line after this year and things like that. 913-912-4810. Let's hear from the Kansas City Chiefs, Ryan Nutt, who is the director of pro player personnel college scouting for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the overall NFL draft, the 7 picks the Chiefs selected, how they maneuvered, moved around the board, the positions that they attacked. Adam Teicher asked and started off the Q&A asking about first-round pick Josh Simmons.
How does he rank as a tackle prospect? Not just this year. How did you guys have him ranked? Not just this year, but maybe going back a few years. Where's his standing and all that?
Yeah. So I'm going to say Josh is one of the better tackles in this draft class. I would give him, you could make your case for the best, but he's definitely in the top 3 in this draft class in terms of what he provides. The only difference maybe between him and some of the other guys is, he started 2 years, and some of these other guys like the LSU kid, I think, started more, and you can say experience and stuff like that. But Josh is physically, he is elite. I mean, he is big, he's strong, his feet jump off the tape. When you put this tape on, his set is as pretty as it looks now in terms of offensive line pass setting. He got better every year. His first year at Ohio State, he flipped to left side, and now from the right side the year prior. And I think it just took him a little time to adjust to just everything, like a new playbook, a new surrounding, a new position, essentially. It's not as easy as people think going from the right side to the left side. There is a big difference, and sometimes it just takes people a little longer, and I think that was the case with Josh. This last year, I mean, you can watch those 6 games, and it's not unfair to say he was the best tackle up to that point. It stinks he got injured, because I do think I guess it's good for us because we got him, and that's the only way we would have gotten him, because that kid, he was a top 20 pick. So it stinks for the kid. It hurt him on his wallet and money, but things happen for a reason, and it's kind of not where you start, it's where you finish. And I think just the setup here that we have with Coach Reed and Coach Heck is going to be great for this kid. In terms of years past, I would say Josh, when he was healthy at this year, this tape would be one of the better ones in the last few years. He kind of reminds me of Christian Darrisaw, who's done really well for the Vikings. He's got a little bit of Slater in him, who plays for the Chargers. The kid's arms are longer than I think people think. The combine measured him at 33, but his pro day was 34 1/8, and I think that's closer to what we kind of had. I think we had around 34 when we brought him in. So, the kid is super talented and super willing to work, and we're excited to have him where we got him.
Okay, and my second question is on Brashard Smith. What do you think he'll need a lot of developmental time to play, at least on offense? I'm not talking about special teams here, but on offense, or do you think he's maybe a guy who's, in that respect, is more than a 7th round pick?
Yeah, so we had him higher on our board than where we took him. And that's when you start to consider trading. When a guy is there that you have higher on your board, and you feel like, listen, what we would give up is peanuts compared to what we think we'll get. I think this kid, if he comes in, he hammers the playbook, which is a big feat now. That's not easy. This offense is difficult. I'm sure you guys hear that every year, and it is. But you have a coach who's willing, like our coaches are super excited about the kid, and they will find ways to get this kid on the field, whether it's in a 3rd down role, an all down role, whatever they decide, the kid will play. I don't know if you guys noticed, the kid's been playing running back since like 4 years old. So it's in his blood. Like, he's played the position. Now in college, he played receiver, and he didn't play a ton. And I remember them talking about, this is the next guy up, and it just never happened there in Miami. Rhett Lashley coached him when he was there in Miami and brought him over. And then he tells a story. He was watching Pacheco and the Chiefs and thought, man, I think Brashad could be like this. And hats off to them. And they moved him. Um, they moved him to the position, and 1 year production, he had 1,300 yards. I mean, that's super impressive. What he can offer on the field is, and I know Kadarius gets kind of beat up sometimes, but when Kadarius had the ball in his hand, his rack and the things he could do with it in terms of his balance and strength and his feet and his feel, this kid has similar ability to that. When he has the ball in his hands, whether it's as a runner or catching the ball, he can do some silly things in terms of what he can set up. So we're really excited. Now he has to come in and pick everything up, and there has to be a comfort level that he knows what he's doing. But talent-wise, there should be no reason this kid shouldn't help us at some point in the season. And our coaches are going to be very willing and able to work with him to get him into roles that can help us.
Hey, great stuff, Ryan. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
We'll go next to Sam McDowell.
Hey Ryan, how's it going, man?
Hey Sam, how you doing?
Good. Sid, I'll have a couple of things too. One follow on Brashard first. Brett had mentioned the week ahead of the draft that you guys wanted to get a running back out of this draft. Obviously, there were opportunities in other rounds. There were some running backs there, fourth, fifth. I know you guys didn't have a 6th-round pick, but what's sort of the strategy, knowing that Brashard's on the board, he's a guy you still like, and trying to decide when is the right time to pounce on a position that you guys were targeting?
Yeah, so we knew before the draft this was a very deep running back class. There's guys that fell into the 4th round that we thought would be gone at the beginning of 2 and possibly, or beginning of 3 and possibly maybe even 2. So we kind of knew it was deep. We knew Brashard was somebody we liked kind of in the mid rounds, but with it being so deep, there was maybe a chance to get him. What happened was in the 5th, I mean, there was a player, and Jeff Bossa, who was there, who was clearly the best player on our board. So that would have been a time to take a running back. But when you have a other player that is higher on the board, Brett likes to go by, listen, let's let the board, we've worked on this board for 8 months. Let's let this thing speak to us. So we took the player we had slightly higher, and Jeff Bossa, and then I allowed Brett to refocus and say, okay, I'm going to take a running back now. I know who I want. So we get to the 7th round, and Brett felt like giving up another 7th-round pick to move up was well worth it, and I think everybody did, to get the kid that we liked in the mid rounds. So that was kind of the thinking there.
Secondly, I wanted to ask you about Jalen Royals. What's just the process of his? I just wondered the process with Jalen Royals. Obviously, he's not an SEC kid. He went to Utah State. What's the process of determining, and what attributes do you look to say, hey, this kid's skills will translate to this next level?
Yeah, first off, his game is very similar to Rashid's, where you watch the kid, he lines up primarily on the left side. That's how they do. That's how some offenses in college work. They want to go fast, so they'll have the receiver line up on the same side every time to do that. So you're wondering, all right, he's always playing on the left side. Is he gonna be able to move around? And he does. He plays outside, but he primarily plays inside in the slot. When I say he's like Rashid, he's got big hands, strong hands, and he's very good after the catch. And you saw him downfield too on some of those clips. I'm sure you saw. I mean, the kid had 50 plus touchdowns in 2023. He was on record, or he was on pace in 2024 to kind of smash the 2023 production before he got injured. So we thought rack is a big part of our offense. That's something we look for in receivers. I mean, we look for speed. The kid had that 4.40. We look for strength. He has that, and he's got rack. And we look for route running, and that's probably an area where Rashid had to kind of develop a little bit. So we kind of thought they were similar in that respect. But he came on the scene. We watched his tape. Before the Senior Bowl, Brett will kind of pick guys that you pick and choose, and we're like, hey, this guy's kind of interesting. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl, and we thought he did well. So he got even more on the radar. Then he goes to the combine, he runs a 4.40, you know what I mean? And he jumps to 36, and we're like, oh, this kid's explosive. And then you get the kind of coaches involved, and we Zoom them and we talk, and we're like, yeah, we could use this kid. And with Rashid coming back from injury and trying to get right, the hopes are, this kid can step in and try to get some playing time and help us out.
Like what I heard there about Royals and certainly Brashard Smith. I mean, he said, look, coaches are excited about him and they're going to find a way to put him on the field. It was, he wasn't couching his thoughts on what Brashard Smith could be as a 7th-round running back. And I also liked the fact of him talking about how that 5th round sort of shook out and then getting to the 7th round and what the value was to use another pick to move up to go to 228 to get Brashard Smith. I want to talk about that and then what he mentioned about Jalen Royals, the running back class overall, Josh Simmons, and there's tons of other stuff that he said throughout the press conference.
I just have to imagine what a great feeling it is when you have a guy on your board and you have a while until your pick and you're seeing the pick go and go. I mean, we know it from fantasy football, and that's even a much more minor scale of jobs on the line and all that stuff. Yeah, then your guy is there, like Brashard Smith, and you're like, wow, the weight that has to be lifted off your shoulders of like, boys, we did it. We can finally get our guy. We had to wait through the doldrums.
72 picks.
Man.
Between Bassa and Brashard Smith.
And the weight that has to go on. I mean, I can't imagine what that feels like off your shoulders of, we got him.
Especially when it's more than just, you playing fantasy football with your friends.
That's what I'm saying. Like
when it matters more that you're like, oh my goodness, I'm a few spots away. That, oh man, I really want this. Oh, darn it.
You text your guy, Jansen, you bleep. I wanted him. How dare you knew
goodness.
I wanted him.
My goodness, I cannot believe that
and then
you
they text
did that.
like Veach text Bean. You knew I wanted that guy.
Yes.
You knew Brandon. I wanted him.
Yes. Son of a gun, man. I hate you. Of course that guy's been gone for a while. Idiot. Ugh. Why are you? Hurry up and pick. Hurry up and pick,
Hey, Jerry, come on.
Yes.
We know you're taking an interior offensive lineman in the first. Come on. We know what you're taking.
Bleeping Jolene out there. Jolene. You took my man. Jolene. One more segment next. Interesting stuff from Ryan Nutt talking about the 5th round and the question about, running back in the 7th and how that whole thing went down, and Brett Veach saying that, there's a pretty decent chance that one of these selections will be a running back. There's a decent chance that this running back class, somebody will be on our team, and they get that guy in Brashard Smith in the 7th round out of SMU. Now, he talked about that, look, this guy's played running back his whole life since he was, 4 years old, but playing wide receiver in college before then playing running back this last year, getting back to running back, but 1 year at running back in college, and how good he is as a receiver and some of the other things that he does. I loved hearing him just talk about what he can do with the team and say talent-wise there's no reason he won't help us. Coaches will get him in roles to help, and said, balance, feet, skilled runner, ball in his hands. He's super exciting about Brashard Smith. But in terms of the running back overall and in that 5th round, he said, the running back class, we knew it was deep, and in the 4th round, there were guys that were being selected that we thought would be gone in the 2nd round. And then he said in the 5th round, they were looking at running back. But then Bossa was there, and he said it was by far the best player on our board. Like, we just couldn't pass it up. This guy's still there. And so clearly the best. And so then they get to the 7th round, and they get a guy that Brett Veach wants in the 7th round. I also wonder if they're looking running back in the 5th round, sitting at 156. I have no idea. But at 151, DJ Giddens went. So if Giddens is there at 156 with Bossa, is Giddens a Chief and Bossa's playing for somebody else? I don't know if he was that much better, if he was the top player on their board, and then boom, now Giddens is gone. I have no idea, but he went 5 spots before Bossa.
Yeah, it was a bossa nova to their ears, huh?
Stupid.
What?
We'll enjoy some gelati talking with Jeff Brom next. Director of Player Personnel, College Scouting for the Chiefs. We'll talk some Royals coming up later on this hour, not just Jalen Royals, but actual Kansas City Royals. We'll get into that. Right now, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs' newest defensive end, Ashton Gelati, out of Louisville, who is a third-round pick that'll be playing for the Chiefs this year. Joining us now, head coach of the Louisville Cardinals, Jeff Brom, here in the zone. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Great. How you guys doing?
We are doing just fine. Appreciate you joining us. Every few years we get to talk to you about a defensive end that's drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. Seems like a thing that we like to do every few years just to catch up.
Well, it seems that way. I think definitely you got two good ones, and it's great for Ashton to get a chance to go play for a tremendous organization, great coaches. I think he'll fit in great. He's just hard-working guys you're going to get, and I think he'll be an outstanding addition to the team.
He was very entertaining to listen to. His personality was fun when he was talking with the media. Is he kind of always like that? He said he was kind of he's like, I'm kind of goofy right now because he was very excited and was pumped. Is he always a guy that's sort of like that, in that energetic and kind of a goofball when he's talking around the team?
Well, actually not as much. I think he's just got a really good, nice, pleasant personality, but really he's an extremely hard worker. I mean, he's a grinder. He works really hard. Reminds me of Karlaftis quite a bit as far as, how hard he works, how much he puts into the game. Those are two guys. I mean, if you're trying to get guys that are never going to have a problem off the field, never going to have a bad day, never going to have an excuse, they're going to give you great effort every single time they step on the field, it's Ashton and George. So I think Ashton, he's just a great talent who's going to go to a great organization and have a great career.
What do you think he brings to the table? As I know that Steve Spagnuolo, he likes to move guys around. He likes to have them play edge, then they can slide down inside and in pass rushing specific situations and play more of a defensive tackle and rush from that standpoint. What kind of a player is Ashton Gelati as an edge, defensive end, defensive lineman overall, and what are the strengths that he brings to the table?
Well, I do think he is versatile, but I think he's just a relentless player, meaning, he's going to go hard and give great effort. He's got great power, great explosiveness. He really comes off the ball. I think he plays to the end. I think he finds a way to get things done. He's just a guy that's going to show up every day and work and give it his best and going to demand attention from the offense. It's going to be a force. So I just think that, him on the edge with the ability to move around will be a great addition. And I just think that, like I said, his makeup, his personality, his work ethic is second to none. So I think this is a guy who can play 10-plus years in the league.
He joked about working with George Karlaftis, and I joked about like over the summer, like visiting family. I'm like, hey, I'm here, and we covered George in Kansas City, and I'm here, and about a couple blocks away is George Karlaftis working out. So we travel all this way, and to be around somebody that I'd be covering anyway. But he had mentioned that he has that relationship with George already. How much do you think Ashton can learn and can take away while he's in college of, George coming back and helping out in certain ways with him? Because he credited George in helping him improve and jokingly how critical George is of his game.
Well, I think, George, we have a great relationship. He was a fantastic player for us. I got along with him and his family, still do. He had a brother that played for us. He has a younger brother. Just a great family. And I think, in the off season, sometimes George comes back here to Louisville and trains with our defensive line coach, with our strength coach. He's over here quite a bit. I know he probably trains other places as well, but he does, feel very comfortable around us and the people we have here. And Ashton got a chance to be around him quite a bit there, and they did some things together. But it's just very eerie, just very similar players as far as, sometimes, like I said, guys can have bad days here or there. You're going to bring their best. I mean, these guys bring it every day, and they work really hard. They love football. They love to compete. They're great teammates. And I just think they'll just be a fantastic duo for the Chiefs for a long time.
Some people, Jeff Brom's our guest, head coach of the Louisville Cardinals. Some people are wondering when looking at just the counting stats that, oftentimes you see a guy get drafted and it's like, all right, let me learn a little bit more about him. Here are the counting stats. Here's what he did a couple of years ago, last year, this year. There was some talk of maybe coming out after last year to the NFL draft returns. The numbers in terms of sacks weren't there the way that they were the year before. Is that just sort of circumstantial in the position to bring somebody down? Ball gets rid of, just barely, whereas a year ago that might have resulted in a sack in certain ways? Or was he being used differently and those numbers suffered because he was playing in a different role for the team? What do you see, or how do you weigh in when somebody wonders the counting stats not there this last year for Ashton the way they were, the previous year?
Well, I think if you count the sacks, that is correct. I think if you count the pressures, it's about the same. So I think he still applied the same pressure. He had the same tenacity. I think teams were aware of where he was at. They were concentrating on making sure that this one player didn't beat him. But I've seen what he does every day in practice, what he does in the games, what he brings to the table. You guys will love him. This is a guy that you'll be able to depend on every single game to step forward and play his best and be very productive, especially when you have really good players around him that will isolate him a little bit more. He's just an outstanding player. So I really feel, there's not too many guys I would say it about, but, between him and George, these are two guys that the effort is unmatched. The work ethic is second to none, and they're great teammates. So I know I'll have a great career.
Have you ever coached a guy whose mom was his strength and conditioning coach before, like Ashton?
Well, we got a chance, to spend a lot of time, at least I did, with George's mother and his family. Got a chance to be around Ashton and his mother a lot as well. And I just think both families really love their son. They're tight-knit. They care about him. They want to see the best for him. They want to be a part of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think, both those young men feel loved, and they give it to their other players. And I think that's why they're great teammates. They have that nurturing from their family that they feel comfortable with, and they give it to the other teammates by the way they play, by the way they work, and by the unselfishness that they have.
Yeah, not many players, I guess, or kids are learning cross-training as a younger kid because that's what their mom is making them do. I just love that story about Ashton. He's like, yeah, that's, obviously my lower body, I didn't bench. We didn't do anything with upper body because it was all lower body because of my mom and making me do the cross-training and lunges and squats and everything. So it's worked out from the leg standpoint, but he's like, kind of really didn't have a choice as a young kid because that's what I was required to do was cross-training as a younger kid. I don't know. Not many kids have that upbringing.
No, like I said, I think Ashton, you can tell he's worked out his whole life. He's got a thick lower body. He doesn't have an ounce of fat. He's really strong and put together. The great thing, too, man, he was very durable for us, and that's hard to do. Like, he didn't miss any games. He doesn't get injured much. He's just really strong and fit, and I think it's a credit to his mother and his family.
Has George brought any of his rings back when he's working out with you guys? Does he show those off?
Well, he'll show them off a little bit. Of course, he's way too humble to show them off too much. But I tell you what, I remember being with him draft day, and of course he's a little disappointed, went a little lower than he thought. But at the time, I'm like, hey man, you're going to the Kansas City Chiefs. They got Andy Reid as a coach. They got great coaches. They got a great quarterback, a great team. I mean, you could win some Super Bowls. And sure enough, it's been 3 in a row. So it's worked out pretty well. And I guarantee you, they will be just as happy with Ashton. And of all the draft picks out there, some may have a question mark here and there. There are no question marks about Ashton Gelati, in my opinion. I think he will be a fantastic player for a long time.
I just love it that George is he doesn't know anything in the NFL except playing in the Super Bowl. It's easy, Jeff. I mean, your experience in the league, right? It's easy just to go to the Super Bowl every year. It's just what happens.
Well, I tell you, he's fortunate. I know he earned it, but man, my goodness, it's a great run. So I hope they can keep it going.
Yeah, and everybody around here is hoping that they get him extended this offseason too, before going into year 4 and take care of him. He's going to be a Chief for a while. So looking forward to what Ashton Gelati can bring to the table as well for this Chiefs team. Jeff Brom, head coach of the Louisville Cardinals. Jeff, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And in a few years, we'll talk to you about the latest defensive end drafted from your team.
All right, sounds good. You have a good day. Thank you.
Yep, you too. There's head coach of the Louisville Cardinals, Jeff Brom. He coached at Purdue with George Karlaftis, and we had him on a few years ago in 2022 when Karlaftis was that first-round draft pick, and he was around George that night on draft night. And as he said, Karlaftis was a little disappointed that he went that low, but he said, dude, you're going to the Kansas City Chiefs, man. You got a chance to win Super Bowls. And lo and behold, that is exactly right. And Ashton Gelati, the same thing, has a chance to win Super Bowls. And when I saw Gelati play and talking with different people, it's like, man, this guy feels like George Karlaftis. And then reaching out to Jeff Brom, and he's like, yeah, he's George. He's like, it's George Karlaftis. I mean, from family to work ethic to durability to drive to motor to how he plays to the practices, to, all of that. He's like, it's personality. He's like, it's George is reincarnate. So no wonder the Chiefs liked what they saw in Gelati.
Which I love, because I was a huge fan of George before he came to Kansas City. That was the pick I said, if the Chiefs are able to draft George Karlaftis that year, please get me Karlaftis.
Mm-hmm.
I know he might not ever be a Myles Garrett because of some of the physical, or like a prime Watt, but you're also not drafting one overall.
Yeah.
So you're if you're holding out for that, I don't love that. Get a guy who's going to get you a high floor, who you know is never going to take a snap off,
right,
who is good both in the run and pass. You never have to worry about, is he doing the right thing? Yeah, and again, I love that comparison, because that's what the Chiefs need. The Chiefs need these guys because they've not done a great job at times getting these high upside players. They've taken some shots, offensive tackle, defensive line, and it hasn't worked out for them. What's worked out for them? The high floor guys, the Mike Danas, the Karlaftises. So for me, get a guy in that mold. I'm a huge fan of that. They know how to work with those guys. Obviously, their defensive line and the coaching staff knows how to operate when they have guys with this skill set. So trying to get a guy with this crazy bend, it might work in other teams, but it hasn't worked here. Get a guy who you know you can get in here and you'll get the best out of him. Yeah, it's a great fit for Gelati, and again, you're going to have a guy with Karlaftis who can work with, and who's been working with, obviously, in the past, the Tamba Hali, who kind of fits that mold as well. They know how to get the best from these style of players. He's going to do great here in KC.
I loved when in his Zoom with the media on Friday night when Ashton Gelati was talking about working with George, and he's like, yeah, we'll sit down and we'll watch film together and we'll watch my games, and he's like, and all he's doing is pointing out the things I'm doing wrong. He's like, it comes from a good place, but he's like, you're doing this wrong. This is what you did wrong here. You did that wrong. And he's like, he's very critical of my game, but it's to make me better. And so now he'll have an opportunity to be coached up by George, who, you know what? Maybe that's what Frank Clark was offering George Karlaftis. Because remember that training camp of George Karlaftis' rookie year, Frank Clark was in camp, and it was and after practice. Like, that was one of the storylines, which certainly endeared Frank Clark even more to Chiefs fans, that, the success during the regular season wasn't there for the money and the first-round draft pick and everything that they traded. Playoff Frank is a different animal. There's blood in the water, Clark the Shark. But watching him after practice coach and help out a guy who was drafted to take his job is pretty awesome. And so him working after practice with George Karlaftis constantly, and also George saying, yeah, I want to learn. I remember the was it the Hard Knocks when Tony Gonzalez was staying after practice and Dwayne Bowe was walking in, and Gonzalez was like, hey, you gonna about here work? I mean, do anything? Then Bowe was walking in, and Tony Gonzalez, now you got it. You got it all figured out, rookie. Now you're good. Now Bowe ended up having a phenomenal career with the Kansas City Chiefs and a great draft pick. But that wasn't Karlaftis, where it was like, Frank Clark, are you going to stay after George? And now you got it all figured out, George. You got it all figured.
Yeah.
No. Training camp, practice is over. He's out there. And Frank Clark is staying and working with him, which is pretty awesome, showing the overall team. And I think George will pass that down. Obviously, he's doing it when he's back working out. He's just back working out with the same defensive line coach that Ashton Gelati had. But then they sit down and watch film and game together to help him along the way. Now he's a teammate.
Doing those things isn't everything, but it's still a thing that helps you get better on this level, where every small thing makes a huge difference, because all these guys were the best of the best in high school. A lot of these guys were a lot of times the best of the best on their college team.
But then you get to the NFL, and you may have been able to get away with that in high school because you were stronger than everybody else. You may have been able to get away with it in college because you weren't playing always. If you're Alabama, maybe one week you're playing, let's just Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
You can get away. You can bolster those numbers up. It doesn't work like that in the NFL. And so those little things, staying after to get an edge, makes a huge difference. And it's why the Chiefs have this championship pedigree. And maybe it's because we're so hyper-focused on KC that we don't notice. Maybe the Panthers players are doing this too. Maybe we're seeing that happen, but I don't know. Maybe the Jets are doing that too. Didn't seem like with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like I think there is something to that of, at this level, you got to do the little things. And the Chiefs, more than almost any other team, they do the little things.
Yeah, no, I like the draft pick. We'll see what he ends up being, and that relationship there with Karlaftis. Let's hear from Ryan Nutt, who talked in the previous hour. Blair Kirchhoff asked Ryan about the new age of, and I should point this out too, how it kind of relates here is that there was a thought around Gelati coming out after last year, being in the 2024 NFL draft, but was one of the best defensive players on the field for them and returned for one more year. Maybe there was a nice incentive package to return for one more year to play football there at Louisville. And also reaching out to one of my buddies that does the post game and was like, so why the down numbers in sacks? And he was like, they were using him differently, man. They would slide him down inside the other team like he was the guy on the defensive line. So it's like, I'm now offering my parentheses here. To me, it feels like if Chris Jones didn't have a whole lot of help, and it was like, well, there's Chris Jones. Yeah. Without the dominating double team, you're going to take care of him. Like in college, you're getting double teamed. You have to be, next level Jalen Carter to shine. And he was like, yeah, just, they were using him differently. And he's like, when they would use him as an edge or whatever, that's when some of those numbers would come. But they were trying to, get the best out of him to help out other people too. And I'm like, well, that's good to know in terms of the counting stats. But returns to school, now's drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. Just one particular player, but Blair Kirchhoff asking Ryan Nutt about the new age of NIL and transfers in college football and what effect they will have on the evaluation.
The biggest issue with the NIL is these kids do not stay at one college to develop. They're constantly transferring, right? Because of the idea of, first off, that might be more of an issue with the transfer portal than NIL itself. I'm all for players getting paid. It's when they transfer 3 times in 1 year. When are you getting developed? If you're always in the transfer portal or you're off the field or you're not in a building, that's the thing. So now you're going to get players who are going to come in and they're just less developed based on they're not staying in a program. They're not getting a year's worth of training. They're getting maybe 3-4 months of strength training because they're in the portal or they're gone or they're taking trips. But they're learning different offenses, different coaches. So they're not getting in rhythm there. I think that's the biggest difference. And then for scouting, how do you get a good snapshot of a player's personal background and character when they've been at 3 or 4 different schools? You're going to hear a different report from half the time. They're all going to be different. The last school to have them, it's going to be usually positive because they want their guy drafted and they're going to give you good stuff. And then you might go to the school that he just left from who's angry he left and transferred out, and it might be different. So now you got to kind of piece it together and say what's real and what isn't real. For us right now, it's just development and what kind of kid are you actually getting? Which version of this kid are you going to get?
Hey, Ryan, I wanted to ask you about Omar Norman Lott. It seems like his board, there's people that have him really high and then others don't have him as high. I guess, well, what makes you confident about your evaluation about him? And I guess in a perfect world, what role does he fit for you guys?
Yeah, so he's got some similarities to Turk. He's bigger. He's not as fast, but their play style is very similar. This kid was 99 percentile in terms of rush win rate. He was one of the top defensive tackles in winning one-on-one pass rush. And that's what we first off need, and that's what we saw could add value. These guys, these interior linemen that are, athletic, this kid jumped 31.5, 9.5. His big hands, those guys go quick. We knew they go quick. So we thought, and a interior guy that can rush as well, go even quicker. So Brett was before the draft, before that round, Brett was pretty adamant about, okay, he's one of these guys we have to consider. And we put up a list of 4 or 5 guys, and he was one of them, and he ended up being one of the top guys left, and that was a position of need as well. But we feel like he can come in and help rush the passer. I feel like he didn't start a ton in his career there at Tennessee, but it's really what you do with snaps, and they rotate a lot. So really, it's just what he does in those 20 to 25 snaps a game. And the kid was high motor. He was highly productive and highly disruptive. And those are the things we look for. And I think we'll be able to. Coach Collins, the best defensive line coach in the NFL, I believe, and he'll be able to get that out of him, and I think more. And even against the run, the kid I thought was solid and stout enough. So that might be an area, just because he's 305 pounds, that can be a little better. But we're excited to get this kid and work with him because we think there's a ton of potential.
First of all, combine measuring, Ryan, you mentioned it. Josh Simmons was, you felt longer than the combine measurement. That seemed to be a real theme this year. Maybe that's just a theme that's caught on, and you guys have always felt that. But why do we seem to see that everybody's arm length gets an inch longer when they go to their pro day? What's the disconnect there on that information?
We actually had our analytics guy look at this, and this was an outlier year. These arms were substantially shorter. I think it was 3/8 of an inch on average. Every player was shorter from the combine to the pro day, and that's what we look at. Okay, is it 1 or 2 players, or is there a theme here? And it was pretty consistent, and that's not on. It's just, listen. Every year the combine has scouts that that they ask to help out, and I think they changed the arm length, the person measuring arm length, and it was just that person doing it this year. Now, if it can be consistent, all we want is consistency, right? So if it's again next year a little shorter and a little shorter and a little shorter, that's fine as long as it's consistent throughout years. It's when you go from maybe being longer to now short, then back to long, like that's where your analytics and your data kind of gets thrown off. So hopefully if it's going to be a little shorter, hopefully that's the case next year and it's not too long and now we're like, oh my gosh, what are we getting here? You know what I mean? Because you just want consistency. Because I don't know, 10 years ago, the arm lengths were consistently long and everyone knew it. So when a kid went to the combine, you'd say, okay, these are consistently long. But there's so many players that get measured there, and it's 350 players, that you have like a pool there that if it's consistently long every year, it's so many players getting their arms measured that you just kind of keep it instead of picking and choosing which arm length you're going to use. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. And then as far as Simmons, there were some reports. You kind of touched on this a little bit about the NIL and guys changing schools, and maybe tougher to get the reports on, background and maturity, and because coaching staffs maybe haven't been with a guy as long. There were some reports that maybe there was some immaturity involved with Simmons. I'm just curious where you think the character is. Did you see those reports? Do you talk to San Diego State, Ohio State? Like how do you track everybody down that to get all that?
Yeah, we did a ton of work on this kid. We had people call San Diego State. I went into Ohio State along with 2 other scouts, and you talk to the coaches, the strength coach, you talk to the academics. I mean, we zoomed the kid twice. We brought him in. So we've done so much work on this kid. We felt good with the character. Was there some immaturity maybe in 2023? It's really, are you seeing this kid grow? When you go from San Diego State, where you're the big fish, to Ohio State now, where you're like a small fish in a big pond, yeah, it's different because you're still programmed to act like you did at San Diego State. I think when he got to Ohio State his first year, everything was so new. I don't think it was necessarily a case of him being immature. I think it was just him trying to adjust this is a West Coast kid going to the Midwest in a different area, different coaching staff, different demands. I mean, Big Ten, these Power 5 huge programs, they're run like NFL. They have huge expectations and demands, and some of these other programs just aren't. They don't have the money or the resources to match that. So I think once he got to Ohio State, it took a little time, but 2024, his character was fine. We had no issue with the kid's background, anything like that. He works hard. He's in the building, doesn't do a lot off the field. So we weren't too concerned about that.
It's interesting there in talking about Josh Simmons. So you do a ton of work. They talked to a number of people at San Diego State. He said he went to Ohio State. You talked to the strength and conditioning coach, academics, talked to everybody. And he said, was he a little immature in 2023? Which is interesting because what I had sort of assumed when they were talking about San Diego State versus Ohio State is that maybe some things were going on at San Diego State.
Yes.
He transfers, gets to Ohio State because what Brett Veach had said was at Ohio State, the theme was night and day since he arrived.
Yeah.
Well, now that Ryan Nutt is explaining it, it seems like night and day since he arrived because some of the character concerns might have been when he arrived at Ohio State during 2023. And he said, was there immaturity in 2023? You know, and then talks about, you know, you see him grow. You get to Ohio State your first year, immaturity, well, maybe trying to adjust. You know, you're in the Midwest now. Ohio State runs some of these big programs run their programs like NFL, professional leagues, whereas some other programs don't have as much money. I don't know, does that mean that he was able to sort of do whatever he wanted, not go to class, show up late, be an issue at times, but he was so good at San Diego State, it's like, oh, that's fine. You get to
went
Ohio
to
State.
college. Obviously, went to Ohio State to play football,
That's a
not
good
to
point.
play school.
Yeah, 12 gauge would tell Josh Simmons, you're fine, do what you do. But like, what does it mean in the adjustment his first year to Ohio State? Then this year, no issues or questions about character with Josh Simmons. And as Brett Veach said, what the common consensus was that night and day since he arrived. So it kind of sounds like 2023 was the issue of going from San Diego State to Ohio State and maybe trying just connecting dots here, maybe thinking he could do the same things at Ohio State that he was able to get away with at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And Ohio State was like, yeah, that don't fly around here. Well, bleep you. This is who I am. This is what I do. Yeah, it's not going to fly around here. And then eventually needing to
acquiesce and understand.
Acquiesce and needing to blend in and not do whatever was going on at San Diego State. I don't know what those things were, but it certainly sounds like the message was received by Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
And then he went and had the year that he did, and no issues with character at that point. So there you go. And Omar Norman Lott saying the similarities there with Turk. Bigger, not as fast as Turk, but rush the same way. 99th percent in pass rush win rate. One-on-one, he wins all his battles. He said before the draft, before that second round, that, obviously getting ready on Friday with that second round, he was somebody that the Chiefs liked and thinks that he'd come in and be a player, rotational player, and they rotated a lot at Tennessee. But high motor, productive, disruptive is what they said about Omar Norman Lott. We'll see. If he can fill the role of Turk Wharton, that'd be great, especially as a rookie. We'll see what happens with that. But he was a guy that didn't play very much, rotational piece, pass rush specifically. But when he was in there, he did win in those pass rush reps. And he does not have to take on double teams because Chris Jones is going to be on the field with them as well. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We talked about Jalen Royals earlier in the show. We'll continue the Royals conversation going, and we'll do that with Joel Penfield. We'll talk about the Kansas City Royals and their winning streak. That was snapped yesterday, but they still took the series against the Astros. They go 5-1 in the homestand, and they now head on the road to Tampa to take on the Rays, and then 3 at Baltimore, who continue to struggle. We'll take a timeout. We'll talk some Royals with Joel Penfield. One Royal Way podcast coming up next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. KSHB 41 Sports Director. We got some Learn, Funniest Best that we'll get into with Mick Schaefer. Let's talk some Royals baseball now. Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast, joining us here in the zone. Joel, welcome in. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing much better than our conversation last week, huh? How about that?
Much better, that's for sure.
How about that, huh? You know, this is a team that, why do we have to look at like 6 or 7 game streaks? We can just look at like over their last 14 games, this is a 500 team. You know what I mean? Like, they're just playing 500 ball. You know, just survive. And when you're not playing well, Joel, play some 500 baseball and then get, when you get hot, go win a bunch in a row. Like, that's just what it is, man. And I feel like everybody was really overreacting. Not me, Joel. I was perfectly fine with the losing streak. I said, just be patient, everybody. Chill. It's all going to be good.
Well, and certainly playing the Colorado Rockies will get you out of a slump, that's for sure.
It helps. Slump busters. They needed one. They got one. You know, they needed a rain delay. You know what I mean? You got Crash Davis got him a rain delay.
Exactly.
The Royals got themselves the Rockies.
Yeah, pretty much. But then, you know, Houston is no slouch of a team, and they still managed to take 2 or 3. They got a couple of great pitching performances. The offense still leaves a lot to be desired, but when you get those types of performances, winning cures a lot of those ills, and there's still stuff to work out, but winning 5 of 6 on that homestand got them back in the right direction, and there's still opportunities to continue to stack wins as we get into May.
So do you feel any different? Like, they're winning, so it certainly feels different. But
right.
do you feel or see anything different from this time last week when they salvaged the game against the Tigers on that Sunday, got ready for the Rockies and the Houston Astros, and we know what happened, sweeping the Rockies and then taking care of 2 of 3 from the Astros. But when we talk about the offense on that doubleheader on Thursday, you know, that was nice that the offense broke out. It did not break out against the Houston Astros. It was just that the pitching staff was so good. So are they winning games in spite of the same issues we've talked about? Does it change the perception about the issues when they're winning? What do you make of this homestand? You mentioned the Rockies, but also the pitching was brilliant against the Astros until, you know, Bubic left one over the plate on a 2-seamer to Alvarez that you just can't do. It happens in baseball, but they still take 2 of 3, but not by an offensive onslaught.
Yeah, they're still continuing to kind of dance through the raindrops on some of this, and the pitching gives you the margin for error to do that, to figure some of this offensive stuff out and keep yourself in a game when you only scratch a couple across. But that's what they were able to do. And I will say some of the offensive stuff that we saw from the Royals this week, there is credit to be given to the Houston staff. Wisniewski is really good. Framber's been one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball, and Hunter Brown is an early Cy Young candidate for Houston. So they ran into kind of a buzzsaw on the pitching side. They were able to scratch a couple across, and with what Lugo and Waka gave them, 2 was enough. But it's not enough most nights, and they still need to find a way to get more offense night in, night out. Bobby is hitting really well, and he's not even red hot yet. He's hitting 357 on this 19-game hitting streak he's on. Salvi's getting going a little bit, but I want to see it over a few more games. But 5 doubles in the last 4 games is a good thing to see. Vinny getting the big home run off Framber, lefty, got him out of a serious slump. Still need to see him get going. But when those 3 guys are hitting, it changes a whole bunch. And I think Jonathan India is getting close. He's obviously still putting together quality plate appearances, some unfortunate luck on some deep fly balls. But once he starts to get into it as the weather gets warmer too, if 1 through 4 continue to hit and produce, it changes a whole lot. It's what we saw last year. When Bobby, Vinny, and Salvi are all hot at the same time, which we just haven't seen, it changes a lot. Hopefully going to a bandbox in Steinbrenner Field where the Rays are playing this year, maybe that'll get them out of this slump too. We go to a hot offensive environment, and hopefully that gets things going as well.
Visiting Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast, talking some Royals here. You mentioned the offense, and this would have seemed like a funny joke a couple of weeks ago, but I ask it in all seriousness because I've got my opinions about it, but I do wonder from your standpoint. Drew Waters, who in the lineup has been batting 8th and 9th, and a couple of times batting 7th, but in the lineup he's batting 7th, 8th, or 9th. Since they sent MJ down and said, Drew Waters, you're staying up, he's batting .370. It's those 8 games. Sterling, go ahead and take a drink. Small sample size. But 30 plate appearances. He's batting .370. He's getting on base at .433. He's slugging .704 for an OPS of 1.137 in those 8 games. I don't know if there's staying power to this, but I do think it's interesting that, hey, MJ sent down Drew. We're staying with you. And he continues what he was doing down in the minors, because we were talking about Drew Waters is hitting. Yeah, but they kind of know what they have in Drew Waters, so maybe not the answer. My question is, does Q need to start examining, moving him up in the lineup now and not being 8th or 9th, whereas you've got a guy who's batting 5th or 6th for your lineup, and he's getting on base at .214, and he's OPSing at .443 by the name of Michael Massey. Should Drew Waters get more opportunities higher in the lineup with guys in front of him that may be on base more often?
So I want to touch on the first point you mentioned there about how he took off when MJ got demoted. That is that's a really fascinating look into the psyche of a player, and especially one of Drew Waters, where he got 19 plate appearances in the big leagues last year, and that was it. It seemed like his time in Kansas City was essentially done, and he was only called up because he was on the 40 and Mark Hanna got hurt, and they just needed a body. He comes up, and it felt like, and I know you guys have talked about it, I talked about it, he's going to be up here for the 10 days and then go down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Canna comes back and they option MJ, Drew's like, oh, hey, I'm not just a fill-in here. Like, I have an opportunity, and he's taken full advantage of it, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I've talked about on the show, when it comes to some of this offensive stuff and guys they brought up from AAA, I don't need you to be awesome for 3 months. I need you to be awesome for 2 weeks. Provide a little bit of a spark and figure out from there if there's staying power to it. I don't know how much staying power there is for Drew Waters on this. A lot of the underlying numbers are not awesome. The surface numbers of, 280, 321, 480 looks really good, but the expected batting average, expected slugging, the hard hit percentage are all not great. That he's still chasing a whole bunch. He's striking out 32%, and he's whiffing 35% with a walk rate below 4%. So this is probably not going to last too much longer, but they need to ride the hot streak with him as long as they possibly can until the wheels fall off. Once the wheels fall off, then find your next 2-week spark plug in from AAA, and maybe it's Tyler Gentry, maybe it's John Rave, maybe it's MJ after some time, even though it has been ugly for him in his first week in AAA. But they need to keep him in the lineup almost every day until some of the underlying stuff kind of regresses back to the mean, and he's more in line with the player that we've seen for the last 2+ seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you on the underlying numbers and in what we've seen from Drew Waters so far. And as you mentioned, ride the hot hand for a couple of weeks if he's going like this. In your opinion, riding the hot hand, would that be moving him up to 5th or 6th in the lineup and not having him bat in the lower third of the lineup?
Maybe, but I also, like we talked about with Michael earlier in the year, I think having balance at the bottom of the order and it not just being 6 through 9 being an automatic out. It provides a little bit of versatility, and him being a switch hitter gives him some of that versatility at the bottom of the order. So I'd maybe keep him where he's at for now and see where it goes. And obviously it's working, so I don't want to shift the lineup too much when you have a guy that is hitting and he seems comfortable in that spot and maybe is like a second leadoff hitter, in that 8-9 spot. I would keep him there for now.
Yeah, and the part about, okay, is he comfortable there? Just leave him there. You move him up. Now does he put more pressure on himself to like, oh, now I've got to be the guy who's protecting Salvi and hitting right behind him, and so I've got to be even better than what I am as the bottom of the lineup, just sort of pass the baton, right? I don't want to put more pressure on him, but you want the balance and not just have that black hole at 7, 8, 9. But also, if a guy's hitting like he is, it would be nice for him to have some guys on base in front of him and not have the 5th and 6th spot being Massey and Renfroe and then Drew Waters up there.
I totally understand the argument, but yeah, we also have to wonder about how much longer is this going to happen for Drew Waters. So
yeah,
if it were like a top prospect situation and he's starting to assert himself, then yeah, move him up. But we kind of know who Drew Waters is, and some of the underlying numbers show exactly who he is. So I'm cool with leaving him where he's at for now and see how long that they can ride him in the 8-9 spot and go from there.
Vinny Joel Penfield is our guest. Vinny Pasquantino talked about, maybe batting number 7 against lefties. There's a thing here. 2 games, a couple of RBIs, a home run there. Do you think maybe there's a thing here with Quatrero, who said 99% of the time Vinny's going to be the number 3 hole hitter, but he's batted 7th a couple of times against lefties? Is that maybe a trend that we'll see moving forward, since at least 2 for 2 with some success in him batting 7th?
It could be, and I think we'll see him probably move down a little more against tougher left-handed pitching, because the 2 times they've moved him down at the bottom of the order against lefties was against Tarek Skubal and Framber Valdez, 2 of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball. When they play the Red Sox here coming up next week or the week after, if they face Garrett Crochet, Vinny's probably going to be hitting 7th, because the second part of that Quatrero mentioned was getting as many cracks with right-handed hitters in a row.
True.
To, you want to take those as many times as possible, 3-4 times through the order against the guy. And it moves Vinny down a little bit, takes a little bit of pressure off him in some of those spots. And it's clearly worked. I mean, he had the RBI single against Tarek Skubal, the big-time home run against Framber. Maybe there's something to it, but I don't think we see him move down all the time against all lefties, especially if it's a favorable matchup for him, lefty-lefty. But against a tougher guy, I think that might be the trend we see.
Is this a rough spot? A couple more for you. Is this a rough spot on the offense where they're uncharacteristically, and I don't even want to say uncharacteristic because it might be a characteristic for these teams, or for these players, but maybe it's an uncharacteristic stretch where they're just hitting all these fly balls and popping up, and it feels like uncompetitive at bats, or at least hits that are, minimal chance of falling in. There's a reason why the advanced stats will tell you, like, the expected batting average is because of how hard you hit a ball. And this Royals team, with number 1 in baseball of launch angle, and in a ballpark like Kauffman, you would think that you'd have more ground balls. But is it a stretch where we're watching, this 29, 30 game stretch where they're, as an offense, they're struggling and popping, the ball up? Or is this just who this team is, that they offensively, when you're not very good as a batter, that it's hard to square up a baseball?
Yeah, I'm not going to say this is who this team is. We're still not even to May yet, and 30 games, it is a decent sized sample, but over 162 games, it's still pretty minimal. Once we get to the quarter pole of the season here in a couple of weeks, and guys are closer to that 125, 150 at bat range, you get a pretty good idea of where you're at, and then I think at that point you can make some more definitive calls and takes about what this offense is, and this is how it's going to be, without, roster changes or shakeup. And I understand what they're trying to accomplish. I do think some of this also is roster construction over coaching and production in that way. Like, we have some of these guys that are just not good enough at the big league level to be everyday players, but because of the way the roster is right now, they kind of have to be. And we'll see as we get into May and June how many of those guys are still on the roster as we head down the stretch of the year, hopefully still, in a wild card spot and competing. And we'll see where JJ is able to make the roster better, to maybe find better players to have in the lineup every single day.
Couple quick ones for you. Do you like the roster move of optioning Evan Sisk and keeping Jonathan Bolin up?
For now, and the reason why they did that, if you watch that Houston series, they really, outside of Jordan, have almost no left-handed hitters. So it was just getting another righty up there. I'd imagine they're going to move Sisk back at some point. That was more of just a procedural move than Sisk isn't good enough. They just needed to get an extra righty in the bullpen to face that Houston roster.
All right, and last one for you. How many games for Bobby in the hit streak?
I think you can get it to 25.
25. All right. 25 for Bobby Witt. He's got to get at least to 20 to make me feel better about my tweet last week. That's it. Just get to 20. You know what? Get to 58 or 59. Get to 60. Why not? Get a hit in every game the rest of the season. Why wouldn't he do that?
Hey, Jason, can I flip the script on you real quick if you got time?
Yes.
Jack Caglianone's playing right field. Are you starting the countdown?
I am, yes. With the way this offense is and has been this year, and I certainly would like to see some of the swing and miss and strikeout. But the fact, I will say this, Joel, the fact that he's playing right field in Double-A when the original plan was for him to play first base at Northwest Arkansas, and then as he advanced to Triple-A, they would play him in right field. I think there's something to it that he's already playing right field down there.
That's my exact thought as well. The fact that he's already there tells me we're closer to Jack Caglione in Kansas City than maybe we anticipate. Now, what that runway looks like is still unknown, but the fact that he's already – we're not even to May and they're already sticking him out in right field tells me it may be closer than we realize.
Yep. As long as he keeps hitting and improving and things like that and doesn't go into like a massive slump, then, yeah, I think we're I think the window's probably – or the timeline is probably closer than what I would have originally given it. But again, middle August, late August, if that's what they do, that still keeps that PPI open for Jack Caglione to give him 3 years to be a top 5 MVP or Rookie of the Year for them to get an extra draft pick. But, you know, do you count on that over the next 3 years as Rookie of the Year or MVP candidate versus do you get 25 extra games with him batting 4th or 5th in your lineup?
That's
and
what
that will do.
Have, to be honest with you.
I'm with you.
Like I'd much rather try and win now with the guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, because they did get a comp pick that they traded for Drew Waters. So, I mean, we've seen what comp picks can work out being, at least from the Royals' perspective. So, we'll find out. Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast, our guest. Joel, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the baseball, and let's hope next Monday we're having the same conversation about how this team is playing and winning as they've got a 6-game road trip against the Rays and Orioles before our conversation next week, getting ready for the White Sox. And so that'll be nice. Thank you, Joel. You're the man.
Thanks, Jason. Have a good one.
Absolutely. You too. Joel Penfield, One Royal Way podcast, joining us to talk about the Kansas City Royals. And they go 5-1 in the homestand, and they get ready for a 6-game road trip, 3 in Tampa with the smaller ballpark, and then 3 in Baltimore against a team that has been struggling and the Tigers just took care of, and then you return home for the White Sox. So opportunity for this team to continue to get healthy in a not literal term, but figurative term, to get healthy as they did against the Rockies and Astros.
Maybe Massey's warning track power can finally get out in the smaller
That'd be
ballpark.
awesome.
Although he did that in New York, and
He's
it
so close, though.
didn't help.
It's so close. One of those, hearing Rex, one of those is it's eventually gonna go over the wall. Now, 50 times later that it's almost got there, when it eventually goes, that hopefully it's in a big spot.
Maybe 51. Yeah, could be it.
Maybe.
I also love that it was almost out in New York, which it's like at some point it's like, come on.
It's like the opposite of Patrick Mahomes, who's
Stop popping it up.
Barely faster than whoever's chasing him.
Yes.
Just short of whatever wall he's hitting it to.
It's the Kia Kaiahui syndrome, where it doesn't matter where you're at, you're just short. I'm just, Michael.
Not sure.
Michael, please.
Although I did, Kia Kaiahui pull is nice. What about Ryan Sheely? You want to throw that one in?
I did like Ryan Sheely.
Did you?
I actually liked.
I liked Ryan Sheely. It was like, oh man, this guy in Colorado. This guy's like, well, is he Klesko?
President.
But is
and
Klesko
vice
like
president
Chipper?
of the fan club over there.
I did like Michael Massey going up the other day and hitting that. Was that on Saturday or Sunday? It may have been Sunday. He hit a really nice opposite field single over the shortstop, and I'm like, okay, we'll see if that helps, because that was a nice flat swing.
Yeah.
We'll see if that can be a springboard for him, because I still think but I do think Michael Massey is a huge X factor in this offense that extends it, because the Royals really counted on him. I know a lot of guys have still struggled, but Michael Massey was supposed to be almost if Michael Massey goes, his offense looks pretty darn good. The lineup looks pretty darn solid. He's not gone, and the offense looked pretty darn bad. I don't know.
A guy who's batting 5th or 6th this entire year, who's OPSing at 443.
That's my point.
Is slugging 228. Not even getting on base at 228. Slugging at 228. And in that time frame that we talked about with Drew Waters, when they optioned MJ Melendez and Drew Waters is OPSing at 1.1. Michael Massey is OPSing at 286.
Yeah, not great,
in
Bob.
that time. And that's sort of my point. It's like, I understand the difference where, all right, Drew Waters, you don't want to take somebody who's actually producing at the bottom of the lineup and then move them up higher, so then you move Massey down, and now you've got an OPS of 286 in the number 7 or 8 spot. But are you wasting the hot streak of Drew Waters because he's coming up with nobody on base, because batting in front of him in this hot streak has been Massey and Renfroe?
Waters has come up, it feels like, a lot with guys in scoring position. Just a lot of times it feels like it's 2 outs. It feels like it's
because guys in front of him are
very
not
rarely. Yeah, it's
passing
like
the baton to him.
Bases loaded, and now there's 2 outs because Massey went down, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, when he's batting 7th and batting 5th and 6th, it's Massey and Renfroe, or even Canna or Biggio.
Yeah.
You know,
Biggio takes walks.
Maybe if you move him up in the lineup, he feels like he's got to do more and presses a little bit. I don't know, but right now he's hot and he's getting the job done, and Massey is not. And this offense is going to continue to struggle if a guy who was going to be relied upon to offer something is offering almost nothing right now in Michael Massey. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. We're actually going to get Shadur Sanders. We're going to go for him. I don't want anybody to know that we got this backup. We don't need Gardner Minshew. We're going to take Shadur Sanders.
Then we would have got an A+ according to Mel Kiper. So.
That's right. Mel Kiper gave him a B. Just imagine if they would have cut Patrick Mahomes and drafted Shadur Sanders. A from Mel Kiper. You know, that's all that really matters. If Mel Kiper's going to give you an A,
like
he certainly acted like a horse's A most of the weekend. So
more like get Mel some diapers. Am I right? Mel diapers, huh?
Is that supposed to be a rhyme on Kiper?
Yeah, it was. It was bad.
I think look,
like his takes.
Like I think draft grades right after the draft are really, really stupid. NFL.com, Chad Ritter, A-. Well, actually, I think there's some value to it, probably. Pro Football Focus, let's see, they're A. Yeah, like it's not that they're dumb. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, A-. I think there is something of value from the immediate grades that people give out right after the draft. That's all I'm saying.
Does it support my theory?
That's all I'm
not,
saying,
Yeah.
It can be dumb. Let's see, Rob Rang, Fox Sports, A-. Like I said, I feel like there's real value in immediate grades after the draft. We've never seen them, but you've got to, if we respect these guys' opinions before the draft on what they think of players, why would we just dismiss their thoughts after the draft when they're giving grades about what the teams were able to accomplish? I think it's a real valuable tool and asset to correctly analyze how a draft class really is. A-, 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 A. USA Today, Nate Davis, B. That guy's an idiot, though. We all know that Nate Davis sucks. All right? Who's Nate Davis? I don't know, but I hate him.
And also, B seems pretty fair.
It's dumb. B?
Sorry.
Are you kidding me?
Sorry.
Yeah. You need to be smarter, Nate D. Avis. Though he's got 2 A's in his name. But the D is capitalized. That's all you're good for.
Talking a lot about, whoa.
Mel Kiper, B+. I mean, he still sucks. They're both right. Nope, actually, they're not broken.
No.
They're only broken because they're fast or slow. So neither of them are actually right ever in a day.
My Christmas gift to 810 one of these years.
Isn't it weird, though, that like
that works.
both these clocks are working, but neither of them are ever right? If they were broken and just stayed on one time, they would at least be
all
right.
about timing and deadlines and getting stuff in. And we don't have clocks that work here. It's fine.
Well, if you ask Drake, the clock from 10 to 2 is all messed up anyway, so mainly because of me, so it's all good.
Shocker.
It's just what happens, and I can blame it on this clock. I thought this is what I thought the time was correct there. I didn't know I was supposed to break at any time during the show.
They're 16 seconds off. It's not like it's...
Is it 16 now?
No, but
it's more than that
around
now, I
that
think.
number.
Let's see it.
Less than 2 minutes.
Remember that one day we spent forever fixing them?
spent forever.
And then Sarin walked in and laughed at us?
Yeah. It was like, you fools, it's going to be a day, and they're all...
Like minute 7 off.
Minute 7 off?
So like
That's not
67 seconds
That's
off.
not bad. Not bad. Just right in the middle, so you know exactly what time it is by adding them up.
I think
and
one
by 2.
goes too fast and one goes too slow, so like
That's
neither
right.
one
They,
is
they
actually
separate
right.
from that way.
Yes.
One isn't fast enough.
I
the other one's
liked
too fast.
seeing you last night, Mick.
Hey, that was great. You came on, you were great. You were a lot better on TV than radio.
It's the exact opposite of Mick Schaefer.
It's because you get to see me.
It is.
You get to see the slightly above average.
You guys should switch jobs.
Yeah, somebody told me, who was it, that you're a semi-attractive guy. Oh, that was you that told me that.
Yeah,
Okay,
semi-attractive.
Was last night.
Well, without confidence, all I have is my good looks.
I know.
Jason, so.
That's right. Sterling will tell you, nobody is more humble than he is.
That's Jason's take
You're
a
the
drink
humblest.
there
You're the
when you say
best at
that.
being humble.
100%.
Salmon shirt? What would we call it? What
Coral.
color? Coral. Yeah,
Coral,
pinkish. Yeah. Had a
sweater.
pinkish hue. I liked it. It was good.
I thought it was lovely.
It is a
Comfortable.
conversation starter.
Well,
you did a good job.
Thank you.
It was a good crew last night. Yeah.
What'd you guys talk about?
Oh,
Some
gosh.
draft?
That KU baseball series
I knew
against Utah. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
That
Makes total sense. You guys talk a lot of
Mizzou softball, lots of
Royals,
stuff. Yes,
and
yes.
Jalen and Kansas City, both of them.
That's gonna be cool. You're gonna have a Chiefs jersey with the Royals on the back.
And we've talked about it. Steven brought it up this morning, and I don't know, other people may have. I have no idea, but the first I heard it was this morning when he said he's got to wear number 85. Marketing genius.
That'd be really good.
I mean,
I said 15.
Or 15. Let's go. Oh, wait.
wait a minute.
Let's get Pat back to 5.
Wait a minute.
5 is a lot cooler number than 15.
Wow, how is this, fourth round receiver from Utah State, the number 1 rookie jersey sales in the NFL? That's
guys.
weird. Number 85, Jalen Royals? That's weird.
By November, he can change it to 25.
I see what you did there. You're saying that he's going to move to running back. I see.
That's
what
exactly
you're
what I'm saying.
That's what you mean by that.
No, I'm
That's
saying
weird.
the Royals are going to win in 30-25.
You just said 25. You didn't say it had to be 20,
Wait, that's
25.
not 30. That'd be 1,000 years.
That's fine.
And, how about 21-25? That's when they're going to win in 100 years.
Will baseball still be a thing in 30-25?
In 30-25, no.
Will the
I'm gonna
planet
say.
still be a thing?
21-25,
Fact or
yes.
fiction, will baseball still be a thing in 30-25?
Fact or fiction, human, still a thing in 30-25 or not?
Touch and go.
Yeah, it's
Fact. The answer's fact.
Turns out
we'll be around.
Turns out robots took over.
We still won't have flying cars. It'd be weird.
Or a damn hovercraft that they had in Back to the Future.
They're
it was like 1990 was
we're
going to have
look
that.
back and you know what? We peaked in technology in 2020, basically. That's where we peaked.
But somehow Snuggies came back. They're in 30-25. Remember
Yeah,
the
they're
Snuggie?
around, absolutely.
Yeah, they somehow
Shake
made
weights are still a thing.
that huge actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge, actually.
Bell bottoms have returned. A lot of
Bell bottoms should
everything-
return. I'm looking at buying a
everything-
pair of bell bottoms.
Well, it's back, and guns are gone. We're back to swords and shields and
Makes
armor,
sense.
and we have knights and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Just throwing like rocks
Start aging
and
backwards.
stuff
Yes.
at everybody. Sometimes the swords have to be made out of wood. You just whittle them down into a sharp point. Sometimes
Well-
you can even bruise somebody very badly. Every once in a while, it might break the skin.
There's
which could be bad if there's not enough help. With
There
doctors
is
and everything.
there is a top baseball prospect out there named Darren Chiefs that the Royals could go draft in June.
I would hope so.
That'd be
Yeah,
nice.
He could pick a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would
there's-
be
there-
popular.
There's so many baseball players in the world that they've got to find at least somebody with the last name of Chiefs.
somebody named Danny Sporting out there.
It's got to be
You
somebody
could
with the
get.
last name of Chiefs.
Probably
out
Current. There is a
in-
Current.
in baseball.
A
Jeff Current.
Andrew Current.
There should be a guy with the last name Schaefer, and his number should be 41.
Oh yeah.
In a sport.
I've got some jerseys.
That'd be
like
pretty
that,
cool. Yeah.
It would be. I bet he already has the jersey. You have a Schaefer 41 jersey. Is it a Current
I have
or
a
a Sporting?
Sporting and a Royals one.
Nice.
And a Chiefs.
Oh, well, you played in the media Chiefs football game?
I did.
Played in the
It was
media
great, yes.
Royals baseball
Tackle.
game?
Yes,
It's,
yeah. Insurance claims were
fast pitch.
were like eight-digit claims. Yeah, that
Fast pitch. It's like, oh, good God, Jesse Newell's on there. He doesn't know where it's going.
So
but he's throwing as fast as he can. He has no idea where it's going to go. Just dig in there.
our high school used to have an alumni football game,
Really?
full pads and everything. And I can remember as a kid being like, I can't wait when I get older to play in this. And they quickly got rid of it.
Weird.
But there's been talks like recently of like Dustin went off and like I don't know how.
I feel like flag football. Okay, I get it. That'd be fun.
We do alumni hoops games, basketball. You do it.
Yeah.
Not
I
too
mean, how many
knees torn up.
injuries typically happen in one game?
Not too many. You just got to know your limits.
Yeah, because typically competitive men know their limits.
They do all the time.
They're in their 40s or like, no, I'm good, man. I'm ready to go.
Football. Did you ever see the Best of Times? You probably did.
With worst of times too.
No, with Robin Williams and Kurt Russell.
No.
He's the man who dropped the ball. And so in high school, they were playing their rival, and Kurt Russell was the quarterback, and Robin Williams is this little used wide receiver, wide open in the end zone to win it, and it went through his hands. And it's haunted him the rest of his life.
Tom
so
Izzo
they're
with
in
the
their
free
30s.
throws.
They come back, and he's like, let's get a game. Let's replay this game.
Yeah.
And so they get the guys from the other town, and they replay the game, and guess what happens at the end?
He drops it.
Well, I'm not going to give it away. Go
my
rent it
goodness.
from Blockbuster. I can't believe you haven't
wait.
seen
No,
Best
I
of Times or even heard of Best of Times.
This is
haven't seen
literally
it.
just Tom Izzo. He missed the free throw in high school, and for 30 years after.
really?
That's why he's like still
Oh, I
shoots.
didn't know that.
He makes hundreds of free throws like a day because it still haunts him.
In
for
like
the-
a state championship or something
yeah, whatever.
like that.
I think it was to win state or something.
I hate to break it to him, but he can make 1,000 free throws a day. It's not going to help him make that one back then. It's already
He missed the
happened.
front end of a one-on-one, I think, and they lost by one. And so ever since then, he shoots like hundreds of free throws a
I
day.
think I can get it back.
So-
You should have done that before.
Yeah.
That probably would have helped
what
him.
a,
But
what a hypocrite yelling at his players for missing free throws. You know, it's like, you missed the front end. But what do you look? I get it. I've
what
been
do you want
there.
me to do? Was
I've been there.
Sarkeesian or the what was it? The Texas guy. It's okay. It's okay, kicker. If you miss this,
You're gonna make
it's
this-
gonna be fine.
Smile, have fun, right?
Just
You're gonna make
smile.
this
It's
kick.
okay.
You're gonna make this kick. Just smile, have fun.
John
Shanks
Shire,
it.
John Shire to Cooper Flag. Listen,
Yes.
do you know what's about to happen here? Okay. Your legacy's about to be made.
We're gonna give you
And
the ball
mine
here.
too.
Mine too.
We're gonna give you the ball.
I
can
think
win
you
a
would.
championship.
What would he trade? Would he he trade that high school state championship for
Yeah.
the 2000 national championship? That's the only one he's won, right?
Izzo. Yeah,
Izzo.
no way. No way.
Yeah,
no way
he got the
would
better
do
end
it.
of the deal. One or the other,
Yeah.
you win the national
But
championship.
I bet
as
he
a
would
coach.
trade a couple
I didn't
of-
even know that about him
Yeah.
until now. So I did know his national.
I bet he'd
championship.
trade a couple Final Fours for that.
That could be
to
your
make
one.
that
Maybe
free
a
throw.
Final
He's got
Four,
he's got plenty of those.
If you want to use as you learned, feel free.
Thank you, I will.
Yeah.
No, that would work.
I'm a generous man.
Thank
That
you.
would work. Yeah, and very humble.
Very.
He's a
humble.
good-looking and generous, humble.
He's the most
fella.
generous, most humblest man I've ever.
Yeah, that's the thing. He'll tell you, like, there is nobody that is more humble than he
Yeah.
is.
No one's more humble than
Yes.
me.
Yeah,
I don't.
Well, and he'll
think.
do it like talking in the third person.
Yeah, Sterling Holmes. There's
Yeah,
no one
that's
more
it, yes.
humble than Sterling Holmes.
Yes.
I mean, Sterling Holmes has it going on.
There is some breaking news in the sporting world, Dylan. If you want to hit the sounder, it's unfortunate, expected news, and that is it has been confirmed that Damian Lillard did tear his Achilles last night. We all sort of knew it when that happened, and he went down, and then he just sat there. He couldn't move. Couldn't put pressure on his foot. He just sat there looking around, not moving. Just can't get up and help out. They're finishing the offensive possession, then they're going down on defense and playing, and then finally somebody from the Bucks fouls so they can stop the game. And then he never puts pressure on the foot again. But you see that he's pushing off, and right as he pushes off, you see the foot just give, and he knew it, and it sucks. I mean, they went to the studio, and the studio on TNT
Sure,
with
they
Shaq
knew,
and Chuck, they're talking about, and Kenny, like, this sucks, man. The guy fought back from the blood clots in his calves, and then he gets out there, and he's been battling it for the last month and a half, and gets out there and plays, and then ruptures his
Here,
Achilles.
Halliburton's press conference too.
No,
I'll find it. Hang on.
Calf leads to Achilles in all
Love it.
ways.
I mean,
does it not?
KD had that had the calf and
always.
the ankle, and his Achilles pop. But it's, man, I don't know. I hope Lillard's so much fun to watch play. I hope he comes back and gets back to the level that he's at. But it's been rough. Here's Halliburton, his press conference after that happened.
Before y'all ask any questions, I want to send my thoughts and prayers to Dame. What you see between us is competing and you hate to see that happen, especially to a guy who's went through a lot, and he's given it his all to come out here and play after a scary health issue. It's well documented. The love I had for that guy, and so hate to see that happen to anybody, and wish him the best.
Yeah, they won the game, and and it is unfortunate, Lillard. So that news, it was expected because they talked about it last night as this is an Achilles injury. Today they've been talking about it that it's an Achilles injury. It's just now you got confirmation from the team that he did rupture his Achilles. So we'll see if he can get back next year. But that was rough. Miles Turner had a phenomenal game and had the poster on Giannis as well. The T-Wolves, take a pivotal game there in Minnesota where it felt like the Lakers controlled that entire game until the end. And Ants, I told you it was a bad matchup for the Lakers. I did not like the Timberwolves-Lakers matchup from the Lakers' perspective. And Austin Reeves is a liability on the floor. When he's not making threes, he's been rough. They're just attacking him defensively, not hitting open shots. He hit the 1-3 that gave him the lead again, but he missed 2 before that, and then he missed the last one to tie it up at the buzzer.
I saw an interesting little stat and story that the NBA went from a strong link sport to now it's a weak link sport when it comes to playoffs. Specifically,
it's interesting. Yeah.
Where it used to be where
you have 2 dudes, you can win with them.
You can win it all, but then it comes playoff, especially right now. It just feels like if you have one guy who's just a liability defensively, they just pick on him.
Right.
And because guys in the NBA right now, almost every single player, they're so good offensively, or at least to an extent, they're good enough to take advantage of that weak link. And I just think it's interesting how the game has evolved to where, LeBron, it's over. You have the guy. Not anymore.
The Bucks are a great example. With Giannis and Dame, you would figure, okay, this team should be contending each and every year, and they're not.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just become a weak link sport, which I think is just very fascinating, the evolution of the NBA. But I love the NBA playoffs. It is, if you don't like the NBA, I can understand during the regular season, but if you don't like NBA playoffs, then I just think you don't like basketball.
Well, typically because people complain about there's no defense in the NBA, but in the playoffs there is.
And it's insane. The physicality, the high
they're throwing
level.
It back. They're swallowing whistles. We're getting brawls. That Nugget series is
love
awesome.
Physical, man.
That's my pet peeve with college basketball is if you throw your head back, you fool the refs. You do that in the NBA, the refs are like, dude, you're an idiot. I'm not calling it. I don't see blood. It's not a foul. Like NBA refs,
unless they have the Skyhawk, and then you can zoom in on that.
I hate the final one with LeBron,
but again, also not in Detroit. You don't get that
in
call,
general, I just love the physicality of the NBA. How strong you got to be, man. It's so enjoyable to watch the NBA playoffs.
Mick, what do you make of the draft class of the Kansas City Chiefs? The 7 selections we know of those guys now: tackle, defensive end, cornerback, wide receiver, linebacker, and running back. So let's throw a dart at each of these positions that are there.
Yeah, it's funny. They usually double up in a position, maybe a couple offensive linemen, maybe a couple D tackles or cornerbacks or something like that. Now they got one kind of each group, and I think if most fans had to pick, all right, 7, I don't know what they are, only 10, positions basically positional groups out there. Pick 7. Those probably would have been the 7, right? Not, no quarterback. Maybe you were throwing a tight end in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's saying they got to get a safety or whatever. So yeah, one of each. I like a few of their picks. I like Brashard Smith.
Oh, only a few of the picks.
No, I don't. These other guys.
Just a few stick out to you more than others.
Well,
Do you have a favorite
let's
pick?
be Norman Lott's the worst pick, right?
Don't you dare.
I said Norman Lott on Friday, and then they picked Norman Lott on Friday. I'm going to get a Norman Lott jersey. I'm so excited.
If you buy it for me.
Maybe, okay, yes. If I give it to you, you will have it.
I'm so humble that I think the Chiefs only drafted Norman Lott because I said it on Friday.
I did not say that.
Brett Veach only listens to me when it comes to draft.
Yeah.
I didn't say it, but I did imply that I do believe that wholeheartedly.
It was also a lot earlier than I thought they were going to draft him, but
I think it could have been there later, but yeah.
It's all perspective, too. Like, what I brought up earlier in the show is, like, okay, so we look at it, and I do think the wide variance of opinions on it is because where a lot of the people had Norman Lott ranked.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so he's drafted at pick number 63. Well, Dane Brugler didn't have him in his top 100. KCSN had him at 146. But if you look at the 2 third-rounders and then the 4th rounder in Jalen Royals, what I find to be interesting is let's say at pick 63 they select Jalen Royals, who is viewed as the 63rd best player on Dane Brugler's board. KCSN had him at 46. They got him at 133. But let's say they get him at 63. And then they take Noel Williams at pick number 66, who is number 66 to Dane Brugler and number 93 to KCSN. And then they pick at 85 and they take Ashton Gelati, who is 78th on Dane Brugler's board and 66th on KCSN. And then at number 133, they take Omar Norman Lott, that is 146th on KCSN's and not ranked in the top 100 in Dane Brugler. Like, if you said you've got 4 selections to come away with these players, does it really matter?
Doesn't matter once you get them. Yeah, sure.
In what order you drafted them in? Because I would have been, if they took Jalen Royals in the 2nd round at that spot, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, I totally see what they're getting in him. Noel Williams, totally understand what they're getting in him. Gelati, it's 3 picks later, so those 2 kind of combine.
And what the biggest knock on Norman Lott's got to be like, okay, he averaged 17 snaps a game, right? But I have to imagine the Chiefs are confident they're going to get more than that out of him if they need him, whether he's a sub-package guy or not. He's going to be somebody that contributes more. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have spent the 2nd-round pick on him. But I like that. I love that he went to the mall to get a hat right away and did his interview with the KC media at the mall. I was in front of what looked like a lingerie store.
So I decided to do the investigative work for everybody else because I wanted to find out where he was. So my belief is that he had his draft party
there
at a hotel.
Okay, attached to someone.
Because I think that is so. Like when you go to a hotel in Vegas, like when you get outside the lobby and outside of the casino, there's those areas where you can go and shop.
Was he in Vegas?
He was in Vegas.
Oh, absolutely.
So the reason I know he's in Vegas is that sign behind him kept changing.
Yeah, I saw Pearl Jam tickets.
And so Pearl Jam, Tom Jones, and a cigar bar were the 3 things that came up.
I love this.
And when you look at the Tom Jones tour, the Pearl Jam tour, and this particular cigar bar, the only 3 things that connect are Las Vegas.
Oh, let's go.
So he was in Las Vegas somewhere at a hotel, and then. But it's interesting because it must have been.
He's a California guy.
He's from Sacramento.
Yeah, Northern California guy.
Yeah,
Hey, there, Norman Lott.
Went to Arizona State and then Tennessee, and I thought it was like he was a bouncer.
Yeah.
At Arizona State, he was like, but I realized that wasn't the life for me.
Yeah.
So, but playing with Jaden Daniels and some of those guys at Arizona State and then transferring out and going to UT.
I think what you saw with the Chiefs with him and the Gelati pick was the athleticism and the explosiveness, right? Especially for Norman Lott, he's 6'1", right? Doesn't maybe match,
He's
big
a tweener.
time.
He's a tweener.
Sure, yeah. But they like the athleticism for both. So no, I like the picks. I really like Smith. I think it's funny. Like Andy Reid's like, oh, you know what? Oh, you're going to make us check down? Okay, we're going to put a receiver at running back on 3rd down now. Right?
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
And then, hey, leading interceptor in college football. Let's go nab him. And then I like the description of Gelati. Just about feels like every time the Chiefs have drafted a high motor defensive end, that's like the first descriptor of him. George Karlaftis, Tom Bahali. Those picks have panned out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not the size you want, or you have this or that, but high motor. Okay, they can do something with that.
He's a George Karlaftis clone.
Yeah,
is what he is, and
he wants to like, and it's almost like a Dominic Rayola to Patrick Mahomes type deal.
That's
like
right.
He worships George Karlaftis. They work together, and he picks his brain all the time. And I think it's funny. Like George is like, yeah, no, this is awful what you're doing. You got to do this. You got to do that better. Yada yada. And he just takes it. Okay, yeah, I'm coachable.
I love that.
But
also, by the way, real quick, that fact that George Karlaftis in the summer is sitting down with Ashton Gelati and watching film with him, going over his games.
Whatever DN coach that is,
pretty good.
Bring him on. Ooh,
pretty good.
Bring him in Purdue and Louisville.
Because he also coached Yaya Diaby and Abdullah. But sorry.
So Turk Wharton was 6'1", 280. Omar Norman Lott's listed as 6'2", 291. I want to say they said 305 at some point. But I don't know if he'll play at 305. But he's kind of that Turk Wharton style, little bigger than Turk. And That's how I see them using him. Is he going to be a every down defensive lineman? No, I understand.
Turk Warden either. So,
but in Turk Warden was because again you can
chew
find
up 2 offensive linemen, a couple gaps, right? That's it, right? Big body, athletic, doesn't matter how tall you are.
To me, it's a lot easier to find the Derek Notties and the Mike Pennell types than it is to find these Omar Norman Lotts or these. I'm not saying he's Chris Jones. Chris Jones is one of one, but can you find someone who can get some pass rush up the middle to can help? Maybe alleviate and maybe even get some one-on-ones occasionally for Chris. I think Omar Norman Lott can do that. It's a unique skill set that the Chiefs currently did not have. Tillery was supposed to be that coming out of college. He never was. And we now know the track record of Tillery. So to expect him to revert back to what we thought he was going to be 6 years ago seems unfounded. They needed a guy like this, and that's why I was so high on him.
Rotational players. Like, all right, you're going up against the pass rush. You've got depth. You've got Karlaftis and Ominahue and Gelati that can rush the passer as edge players. FAU hopefully continues to progress. Chris Jones, Norman Lott, Tillery are pass rushing guys as well. So you've got different players there. And Pennell, stop the run. Maybe they have to go out and find somebody else that can come in and be a defensive run stopper. But Norman Lott was asked to describe his pass rushing style.
Relentless, unforgiving.
That was his answer.
Okay.
Relentless and unforgiving was his answer.
Are those
for
Clint Eastwood movies? One of them I know, but
is that what
I think it's Unforgiven.
Unforgiven. What are your 2 favorite Clint Eastwood movies there, Omar Norman
It's
Lott?
Relentless, I got to check on.
No, it's hey, Omar Norman Lott, Dylan. What's your favorite 2 Clint Eastwood movies?
Relentless, unforgiving.
Yeah. Hey, Omar, how would you describe Sterling's ability to always give us more and more cuts every single day? Every day, how do you describe his ability?
Relentless, unforgiving.
That's true. Yep, you do. Sterling, I agree with Omar on that one. You are relentless and unforgiving in your ability to continue to give us maximum amount of cuts each and every week. And you do it on a daily basis, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I thought it was weird when he asked, was later, can you tell us what else is good about you? He said, Gran Torino, the outlaw Josie Wales.
Relentless, unforgiving.
What do you say to quarterbacks when you sack them? Get off my lawn.
The mule, trouble with the curve.
You feeling lucky?
Now you got to ask yourself, did I do 5 pass rushing moves or was it 6? Do you feel lucky? Have I used all of my pass rushing moves? Yeah, that's the same thing. Yes, that's exactly what he would say.
By the way, I think it's time. I'm going to do it. I think FAU has a good year this year. He's still only 6 months older than Ashton Gelati. 6 months. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how young FAU is. And just because you brought him up, the 6 snaps a game last year, he actually would look like he would thrive in those 6 snaps.
He produced great for how little he played.
But
right?
he just so obviously that tells you that they didn't trust him in a larger role. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being a buffoon, but I feel like I'm gonna buy into FAU this year. I feel like I'm buying stock.
Okay. Even if you were, you wouldn't admit it because you're very humble.
Oh, if he was a buffoon.
I
he'd be
admit
the best buffoon ever, right?
I would be a great buffoon.
Be the best.
How would you describe, Sterling, your style of buffoonery that you would have in your daily basis? How would you describe your style of buffoonery?
Relentless, unforgiving.
Fistful of dollars.
Whoa!
Not those.
Mick!
All right, dollars. Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, Clint Eastwood. That was a different spin on that movie.
Fistful of what, Mick?
Dollars.
Is a good
I thought you were talking about a John Mayer song.
No,
at first.
it was a Clint Eastwood movie. Is the way that he would describe your buffoonery. All right, enough of that. Learn funniest best. We'll come back and get into that. What we learned, the funniest and the best from the weekend. Warzone next. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, heading up until 2 o'clock. This Monday edition of the show. Post NFL draft, Chiefs with 7 selections. We talked a lot about that. Heard from Ryan Nutt earlier in the show as he was breaking down the selections and talking to the reporters and discussing different things coming from that. Let's get into Learn Funniest Best, what we learned from the weekend, funniest from the weekend, and best from the weekend. What I learned this weekend is I learned the name of Jeff Ulbricht's son. That's what I learned this weekend is Jeff Ulbricht, the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I learned that his son's name is Jax.
You did learn. A lot of people learned that.
Yeah, had no idea that he had a son. Didn't know much about Jeff Ulbricht. Certainly didn't know that he had a 21-year-old son named Jax. And the Atlanta Falcons put out their statement after the viral video of Shedeur Sanders being prank called. The Atlanta Falcons statement says, earlier in the week, Jax Ulbricht, the 21-year-old son of defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbricht, unintentionally came across the draft.
He tripped over it. Okay,
Whoopsie daisies.
It fell
It's in
into
the
the
living room.
contact book.
Yes, my bad.
She kissed me. The phone number found me. I did not. I unintentional, totally. Unintentionally came across the draft contact phone number for Shedeur Sanders off an open iPad while visiting his parents' home and wrote the number down to later conduct a prank call. Jeff Ulbricht was unaware of the data exposure or any facets of the prank and was made aware of the above only after the fact. The Atlanta Falcons do not condone this behavior and send our sincerest apologies to Shedeur Sanders and his family, who we have who have been in contact with to apologize to, as well as facilitate an apology directly from Jax to the Sanders family. We have also been in contact with the NFL and will continue to cooperate fully with any inquiries we may receive from the NFL League office. We are thoroughly reviewing all protocols and updating if necessary to help prevent an incident like this from happening again.
You just got jaxed.
What if that's his thing in college?
he hung up. You just got jaxed, bro.
Jaxed.
So many
jaxed.
So many bad decisions by that kid. And the top one isn't that he decided to do it.
No.
It's a bad one. But you film it, then you put it out there.
Yeah.
But my biggest pet peeve is like, okay, you're putting your ass on the line and your dad's high-profile job
No doubt.
that has created this, I'm sure, great life for you, whether you've taken advantage of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting that on the line, and it wasn't even that funny. Right? You got to go after. You got to let's have a horrible dismount. Right?
Now you're going to wait longer. Pah! Got him.
But you know why? Because he couldn't just let it be a story. It's the age of I have to have the clout. I have to have people know that it was me that actually was his undoing. Is that I can't just let it be a fishtail. I actually have to post this so people know that I did it.
Yeah,
Which clout, and it just totally backfired.
Yeah, at least be funny.
And it wasn't funny at all.
It was like, remember in Anchorman when they don't have a plan and they prank call Veronica Gordon? So it's like, you're pregnant. You're gonna quit. You're pregnant. It was like that.
What if they would have said that?
That would have been funnier.
It would have been so much funnier. Shedeur, this is Mickey Loomis. Just wanted to say that we do have the test results back. You are pregnant.
Yes, yeah.
So if...
one of the Bills draft picks got pranked like 5 times.
Yeah, and Tyler Warren got pranked, the Colts tight end.
Although
how early you're going to get pranked? He was drafted like number 14 overall.
It's got to be an easy fix. You have to like a direct line for all 32 teams, and you like send it out to all these prospects and like put all these numbers in your phone. It'll come up as Tennessee Titans. It'll come up as Kansas City Chiefs. Any other numbers, don't trust.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That is. But yeah, there were the difference is whoever prank called the Buffalo Bills draft pick or Tyler Warren or others didn't post it online.
Yes.
How many sales?
We know about this one because they posted it online and we saw it, and we also saw it from the Shedeur Sanders camp because they videoed. Because they had the video crew, and then they released that audio of him getting pranked.
I love it when he was
what's that mean?
Shedeur's still arrogant on the prank call. I was like, it's about time you guys called.
About time, yeah. I've been waiting a while. Well, what if it was Mickey Loomis was like, you know what? I've been waiting a while. Well, you know what? Then
That's
wait
not
longer.
the answer I want.
Then
Okay,
wait
we'll
longer.
call you back.
Well, I guess you're going to have to wait longer then. Click.
That would have been fun. That would have been funny had he done that.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be legendary. All right, enough with the brand. I mean, the legendary brand and everything. Like, I wonder why he slipped so far.
His many reasons.
His answer to Mickey Loomis was that it's going to be legendary.
How many spam calls get answered by athletes on that day, thinking they're getting called
all
by
of them?
Like
I would answer all of them.
If I was a salesman and I saw that they were in my leads,
I'm calling those
Even
guys
if it was
guaranteed, and we're getting a call.
A 12-digit number, what's coming from like Mexico or something like that. I'm like, I'm gonna give it a shot, just to make sure.
Could be.
Just in case. I have been drafted. Okay, I've been drafted to the Mexican Football League. Heck yeah, dude. I don't play football. Well, I do play football, but you know what? They do say I have good feet. So we'll see what happens with that. But yes, I learned Jax Ulbricht's name, and boy, if there's a kid who has probably had a decent life and sort of like access to things and being around, like, I don't know, the Atlanta Falcons and professional teams that you are never going to go with. Take your kid to work day. Jax ain't ever going to be around that facility ever again if he ever was. You just be for a fun little prank that wasn't funny and quite frankly was cruel. And then and now it's like, okay, cool. Hey, Dad, can I run to work with you? I'm going to stop by and pick this up. No, you're not.
No, not anymore.
No, we're going to leave it outside
and guess
for
what?
you.
Yeah, I mean that the is he Ole Miss? Is that where he's going?
Yeah.
By the way, that tuition check we're cutting, go get a job.
Yeah,
figure that out.
But also, like, I would really hope. Like, I know that Jeff Ulbrich, hey, whatever, unintentionally, or he had no idea about the data exposure. But I would really hope that when my son's 21 years old, if he sees a number like that, he wouldn't take it and then prank call somebody. He'd be smart enough to.
He might not. To where it's like. Half the things that 21-year-olds do is are kind of like borderline cruel and dumb and all that stuff. To where like you tell these kids not to do it, they'll probably do it anyway. So that's why I said that's on the list of things not to do. But after that, it was like, you videoed it and you posted it, and
it wasn't funny.
And it wasn't funny.
What'd you learn, Sterling?
How much you missed the Beaumont Club? Went to,
All right.
There you go.
Because I went to Char Bar, and I always go by when I'm on Westport. It's like, gosh, I missed the Beaumont Club, and because Char Bar and Beaumont Club, like, that took over.
Yeah.
Char Bar was great, by the way, but I just saw so many
Jealous.
concerts at the Beaumont Club, and the speakers were never good, and you could never really get a good view because it was just a complete flat thing of concrete. But
good view what, like the city?
No, of the show, because it was all flat, and I'm like 5'4" in high school trying to see, and I'm gonna get on people's shoulders. Man, I missed the Beaumont Club. I just nostalgic. I missed that place.
There you go.
I saw Dirk Spindley there once when he
Cage
was
the
nothing.
Elephant in 09 when they just started. They weren't even like a band. I was like, this is awesome. It was like this guy, the singers from.
They weren't even caging elephants. They were just like little monkeys back then.
Yeah, they were just caging smaller rhinos, maybe like baby rhinos.
Baby rhinos. Yeah. Cage the peacock.
What did you learn, Mick?
I learned that Baron Sorrell is going to be the next guy to victimize the Chiefs on the football field. A couple of years ago, remember in Kansas City, the one guy that stayed over, that was there for the first round of the draft, that stuck around, was Brian Branch, DB for the Lions. I was there in his press conference afterward, and we were asking him, like, why'd you stick around? I'm like, this is the coolest time. Whether drafted first day or second, this is the biggest moment of my life. I'm like, I am a huge fan of that guy. And in the first game of the year, when the Lions came, he intercepted Patrick Mahomes, ran for a touchdown. Actually, he intercepted Kadarius Toney, ran back for a touchdown. I'm like, well, I can't be a fan of that guy anymore. Yeah, no. And so Baron Sorrell not only stuck around one day, but 2 days in Green Bay. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
But why did he attend the draft if he went in the fourth round?
He was invited, right?
It's just so weird.
But
man.
Was he projected to be?
I have no idea.
I don't know where he's projected. I mean, you got to be projected pretty high for them to invite you. And so he's like, you know what? I want to do the walk, all that stuff. So I get it.
Good thing.
And so he sticks around. Yeah, great
that
thing.
That would have been,
Well, I mean, they wouldn't have built him his own room, so
that's a good point.
And there's no way he was going to come back on Friday.
Yeah.
So good for him sticking around 2 days, and the hometown team drafts him. He gets to make a walk, and the entire crowd gives him a round of applause. So whenever the Chiefs play the Packers next, he's going to have like a scoop and score.
Yep, that sucks.
Projected 3rd to 4th round draft pick. So.
Well, that makes sense.
Just showing up.
You know what? I went to the draft too, just in case they were going to draft me, and I didn't show up the next day because I was pissed. Dylan, what'd you learn?
So I learned if you want to have your significant other by your side during interviews, you can do that, and CBS made that a possibility for Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. If anyone saw this, I feel bad for you, and you have to see it because I did.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on.
Yeah, how did you guys
always
meet?
good.
How did you guys meet? I don't know. Yeah, Bill, shut up. You're not talking. Okay, she said I can't talk
So the
about
best,
it.
obviously,
Hardee's.
audio medium, but go check out the video. It's pretty creepy where she is placed in this shot here, just kind of like
it's over to the right, sort of just watching in
the corner.
But it's also interesting when he's like, I've never really cared about what people thought about me, as evidenced by the fact that I'm wearing an old ratty sweatshirt with a hole in it.
Navy.
We believe that's the
it's a hole in it.
Truest thing you've ever told the
Not
media.
like a hole like in the back or on the side where you can't see. It's a hole like right next to the collar. And then the rest of the shirt looks like it's something that he had been wearing like at night just to throw on for comfort, just around the house. Like, oh, you're wearing that again. Okay, that's like good for you. 3 weeks in a row wearing that every night. Yeah, I believe him that he's never cared what people thought about him, as evidenced by the shirt I'm wearing. The funniest for you, we'll start with you, Sterling.
I saw a concert, great concert, Bobby Rush and Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
He's hilarious.
Bobby Rush is 91 years old. Okay?
And related to the Rush brothers?
91 years old. He's an old-time blues singer.
Brother. Yeah,
I mean, he is a old-time
He played at Pim
blues
Day
singer.
High School when in Pembroke Hill.
And
Pim Rich.
So 91 years old.
Pim
and
Rich Valley.
just came out with a new album with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, an old-time blues singer. I'm going to sing you guys a little lyric right here,
Okay, great.
and I'll
Please
have
do.
you guys
This is gonna be
guess.
Let's guess.
Okay. Where I'm going, you don't have to pack too much. You know, all you have to bring, little girl, is a blank and a toothbrush. What do you think he's asking you to bring? This 91-year-old guy.
He's talking to a girl?
He's talking to his girl, but
Is it Bill Belichick's girlfriend?
could be. It's actually
She doesn't want to talk about that.
she's
One
probably
syllable
told
or
her
two?
mother.
Probably one. Is that one syllable?
2 syllables.
Oh
Two
my
syllables?
God.
Okay.
I hope it's, a pillow.
It's not a pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Toothbrush. I don't know.
Oh, condom.
G-string
Oh,
and
okay.
a toothbrush.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
where
I-
I'm going, you don't have to pack too much.
I thought it was. I thought
all
that
you need to
was-
bring,
I thought
girl.
Mick was
the G-string.
That's what I was, but I didn't.
And
really
a toothbrush. So there's a 91-year-old
That's
man singing this on stage, and it was just incredible. Just you don't expect that. What
Have
are
you
you
been around
expecting
90-year-old
someone
men before?
to bring?
Kind of expect it.
Well, I mean, you got to understand, back
Been
in the
in nursing homes
1930s,
before?
a G-string was something different. It was actually fully full-length dress.
A lot of
okay,
cloth.
yes, it was.
A G-string was actually if they
well,
showed ankle.
You,
Oh my God, she's wearing a G-string. Look at those ankles on that girl. What a hooah! That hooah's showing off her ankles? Never in my house.
Well, you do say that, but then he goes on to say to make sure the dress part, if you wear that dress, make sure you wear it short, because the less that you wear, the less that he has to take off. So
That's
there's
a factual statement, though.
91-year-old just
Yeah.
on stage.
Yeah.
Actually, great concert, very
I
funny.
bet it was
but
hilarious.
I was taken very much off guard when
take
that's
off.
what I hear come out of his mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. What was the funniest for you,
He's
Mick?
probably talking about 70-year-olds. That sicko.
Yeah, I know.
Way too young for him. My funniest BW Carlin tweet, going to be awkward when Shadur has to go back to Colorado and wear a different number since they retired his.
That'd
be funny.
Very good.
So on Friday morning it didn't happen, but they showed a picture of the name and then the number 2 on the facade in Colorado and said, well, I didn't realize this was the round he got drafted in. But that didn't happen on Friday. Anyway, Dylan, funniest for you?
Funniest for me was Quinshawn Judkins had a nature call when the draft was up. So here we go.
Remember, you were talking about that moment when you got drafted. So this is Quinshawn Judkins. His phone rang while he was out of the room. So you see, members of his draft party.
And Mike
are there.
Greenberg
the
does a good
Browns are
job.
calling to select
Rare
him,
occasion, but he did
he's
do a good
not
job.
in the room, and so they answer the phone, and they're all yelling for him. Hey, Quinshawn, and then he comes back in to take the call.
Sometimes you got to go to the bathroom, Chris.
That's exactly right.
There I go.
So there's
Like me.
an interesting moment there.
I would have been out of the room. There's no question about it.
If you know, you know. So anyway, Quinshawn Judkins, when nature calls, sometimes that beats out when the Browns call. So we.
I thought it was interesting when Mel Kiper was saying like they should have actually drafted Shadur instead of him because if that guy's going to go to the bathroom, then he doesn't care about getting drafted by something like that. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I assume that's what
The
Mel
Browns
Kiper wanted
did
to
call.
say.
And that's why I was laughing.
That's what I was saying. That was a
God.
great
That's a
dismount by
good- That's pretty
Greeny
good.
there.
Yeah, that was nice from
Is
Greeny.
he now Quinshawn
I
Nature
don't know.
Calls Judkins?
No, probably not.
How many times are you to the bathroom when you're waiting for a phone call, waiting for something to happen? That's what sparks it.
Oh,
right?
it's whenever we go to a restaurant, I always immediately go to the bathroom after ordering because the food always shows up. Yep, always. It's like, wow, that was very quick. Did you microwave that? Because I just went to the bathroom. Like, no, we saw you in there. We had to bring
He's in
the
there
food.
for a half hour. Food's actually cold by the time Jason goes back out.
My funniest actually came from a text thread that we had with the player pool over the weekend, and the funny exchange started by Curtis Kitchen. May remember working here at Sports Radio 810. He said, he's like, I always like to think of the NFL draft happening like our draft happens. Like the GM of the Bills calls the Patriots GM just to give him bleep about his spotty Wi-Fi. We're having to stop and get a beer before picks. Or like the AFC West guys all ganging up and group chatting the Seahawks GM to tell him he's taking too long. And then Curtis was like, hang on, Dave, let me scroll down my board to find this guy. Scrolling. We've got a new record of the worst draft pick. Nice job, GM Mickey Loomis, you idiot. The Curtis Kidd is that the oldest GM in the group is using printed sheets and a highlighter to figure out his, and then Sir Hit said, or calling the guy who took number 650 on your board and saying, "Congrats, dumb bleep. I don't think anybody could take somebody lower on my board than Jerry Jones, but that linebacker just took 200 spots lower, you dummy." And then Curtis says, I'm going to take Abdul Carter, edge, Penn State. Gone! Pay attention, Mike. Jesus. And then somebody actually created a tweet from Adam Schefter. He didn't actually tweet it, but somebody created this photo. It says from Adam Schefter, the Saints stunned everyone by selecting Tyler Shuck with the 40th pick. Reports say the Saints got kicked out of the draft, and by the time they logged back in, the app had auto-drafted for them. Pretty good. That conversation. I'm just thinking of everybody's had those drafts where you're complaining about different people, like, what a terrible pick, if that's actually what was going on and you had access to talk to each other. All right, best, we start with you, Mick Schaefer, best from the weekend.
Did you get it, Dylan? Thank you.
Did you
Benjamin
get his best?
Morrison, cornerback for Notre Dame when Tampa Bay called him. Hopefully this translates to radio, but here's his call.
Thank you for believing. How you doing, Coach? Man, I'm not gonna let you down, man. I promise you, man. Thank you so much. Ooh, I will. All right, Coach.
So there you go. I'm getting older. I appreciate those calls over the choreographed dances or the guys saying I'm going to make the other teams pay. I like the guys that really appreciate taking a dump.
I'm tattooing the name.
The ones that don't think they deserve to be taken, or the ones that it's their God-given right.
Tattooing the number on my of the draft pick I was as a reminder every day that all these people passed over. Yeah, sure, but then what happens when the guy has success? If that's what's driving him is to be disrespected. Well, I got success. Oh, cool. All right, great. I'm good. Dylan, best from the weekend?
Best for me, Nick Jacobs winning the mock draft.
Won a couple of them, by the way.
Well, and I did want to highlight that the Huddle Report tried to. Allegedly, I thought it was pretty funny how we had a scoring debate.
They did. The next day they had an adjustment.
Somehow their mock drafter won first, but then all of a sudden Nick Jacobs tied him for first.
Yes.
So. Might be launching an investigation.
And the mock draft database, by the way, he won out of over 1,500 mock drafts.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
And he does one.
That's the other thing that was awesome.
He does one. He doesn't do one in February, then March, or 2.0. Here's 9.0.
One and only.
One and only.
One and only. My best is...
Maybe Mel Kiper can grade his...
And by the way, he's also producing like KC Current segments and trying to get the 10 o'clock Royals highlights cut and all that stuff. Yeah.
Mel Kiper was criticizing Nick Jacobs. They didn't have Shadur Sanders going in the first round, so that was
got
the
to
problem.
punch up sometimes.
That was the problem. My best is a lot of those videos that are out there. Will Howard had an amazing video with him getting emotional. But real quick, this comes from Jalen Milroe. This was a quote from an interview that he did with the team as to why they selected Jalen Milroe, and he said. This comes from the story. It says, one of the teams asked Jalen Milroe a series of questions about what he was really good at. And then they said they asked him what he could get better at. And his answer was, quote, how much time do you have? And the guy goes, we're sitting there interviewing Jalen Milroe, and he's telling us all the areas that he's working on right now, quote, to which this team said to him, are you not concerned pointing out those things to us would concern us? And he said, You should be concerned with any guy that comes in this room who hasn't played a down in the NFL and doesn't tell you he has weaknesses or that he isn't working on them.
Perfect answer.
Plus,
Damn.
it's an insult because that means he doesn't think that you know how to watch film.
How do you go before
Perfect
Shador?
answer.
That's crazy.
Right? Right?
You don't think Shador said something similar?
How did he go that fast?
Be legendary.
That's right. Best for you, Sterling.
Went to Blue Hawk Sports Complex for my 31st birthday. We had a lot of fun. We had a great time. About 12 of us went out there.
It's a great place.
First time, played crazy darts, went bowling. Great beer as well. I rode the little coaster that you get.
You rode the coaster?
The
Yeah.
thing up top, and you go
my
around.
son rode the coaster too.
Yeah, I felt pretty
You
old.
gotta be
for it.
4'10" or shorter
he's
to ride
9.
that thing.
Yeah,
you know?
he's 9.
He's 9.
It's fun though, but I was also told a little thing. If you hold the throttle down, you can go faster. So I was zooming
Usually how it
around
works,
that
yeah.
boy. Well, they don't know about it. People don't know. You've got to be
tell
in the
my
go.
son that.
throttle.
Don't tell my son to hold the
So
throttle.
shout out Blue Hawk Sports Complex. Had a phenomenal
Nice.
time. Really, really cool.
It's a really cool place, and they're adding on to it too.
Nice. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap the show next. All right, wrapping up the show here on this Monday. Thank you, Mick. You're the man.
I know. I know. But I love to hear the confirmation from other people.
That makes total sense. Makes total sense. Yeah.
You are pretty
For
humble.
sure.
Thank you. Well, I mean,
You're almost as humble as me.
I'm the second humblest in this room. Yeah.
I liked the one of the tweets that went out on Thursday that they took a picture of a close-up of the Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals run the clock, and it said, Cardinals pick us in, and someone was like, wow, the Vatican was quick this time. I mean, usually it takes a lot longer for them to see the smoke.
There's a whole skit they did on like the Pope draft, basically, and at the end they draft Shedeur Sanders as the new Pope.
I saw that. That was pretty good. Yeah, the conclave. I mean, you just
legendary.
They got to the answer quick.